The first time I secretly paid my parents' mortgage, I was sitting in my car outside their bank, hands trembling as I transferred $2,800 from my private account. Dad had just lost his job of 23 years. Mom's arthritis was getting worse, and my brother Michael was too busy finding himself in his third year of grad school to notice our family was falling apart. That was 3 years ago. Now, I stood in our kitchen, washing dishes from another tense family dinner, listening to Michael complain about how I was taking advantage of our parents' generosity by still living at home at 28. "It's embarrassing," he declared, lounging on the couch while scrolling through his phone. "All my friends ask why my sister can't get her life together." I scrubbed harder at a pot, saying nothing. Let him think I was struggling. Let him believe I couldn't afford to move out. The truth was far more complicated. "Sarah," Mom called softly from her chair, her hands working at her knitting despite the pain. "You know you're always welcome here." Michael scoffed. "Mom, you're enabling her. She needs to grow up, get a real job instead of that online whatever she does." That whatever was my tech company, now valued at just over $40 million. But Michael didn't need to know that. None of them did, not yet. "I contribute to the household," I said quietly, drying my hands. "What? Buying groceries sometimes? Doing dishes?" "That's what teenagers do for allowance." Michael stood up, his 6-foot frame towering over me. "Meanwhile, I'm about to finish my PhD. I'm going to be a professor. I'll be able to really help the family." I bit back a laugh. His student loans could buy a small island. Dad shuffled in from the garage, looking older than his 60 years. The layoff had aged him, turned his hair gray, bent his shoulders with worry. He tried to smile, but I saw the strain around his eyes. "Everything okay in here?" "No, Dad, it's not okay." Michael turned to face him. "We need to talk about Sarah. She's almost 30, still living at home, barely working. It's not right." Dad sighed, sinking into his chair. "Michael, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time. Look at this place. We're barely keeping up with repairs. Mom needs better medical care. And we've got a perfectly capable adult just freeloading." Mom's knitting needles went still. "Michael, that's enough." But he was just getting started. I'd seen this building for weeks, ever since he'd come home for an extended visit after his graduate housing fell through. His own failures were eating at him, and he needed someone to blame. "No, it's not enough. Sarah needs to hear this. You think I don't notice how tight things are? How you and Dad are struggling?" Meanwhile, she sits in her room all day, working on her computer, probably just watching Netflix. I was actually on video calls with my development team in Singapore, but sure, Netflix sounded about right. "I pay my way," I said softly. "With what money?" He laughed harshly. "Your little web design business. Please. I saw your car, 10 years old and dented. You can barely afford gas." That car was a deliberate choice, like the simple clothes I wore, the lack of flashy accessories, the careful appearance of just getting by. I'd learned early that success is easier to build when no one's watching. "You don't know everything about my finances, Michael." "I know enough. God, it makes me sick seeing you take advantage like this. Mom and Dad are too nice to say it, but I'm not. You need to grow up, get a real job, move out." "Michael, please." Mom's voice shook. "Your sister helps in ways you don't see." If she only knew how true that was. The mortgage payments were just the start. I paid off their credit cards, set up a private medical fund for Mom's treatments, and quietly arranged for the home repairs they thought their insurance had mysteriously decided to cover. What ways? Michael demanded. Does she have some secret fortune we don't know about? He laughed at his own joke. I said nothing, just pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. 3 years of transactions, all carefully documented. Every payment, every transfer, every bill quietly handled, while they thought they were just managing to scrape by. Actually, I started, but Michael cut me off. No, I'm done listening to excuses. This is our parents' house, our family home, not your permanent crash pad. His voice rose to a shout. GT out of our parents' house. Well, we're just a freeloader. The room went silent except for Mom's sharp intake of breath. Dad's hands gripped his armchair, and something in me finally snapped. Interesting choice of words, Michael. I turned my phone screen toward him. Should I stop the monthly payments I've been making for the last 3 years? He squinted at the screen, then his eyes went wide. Mom started crying softly in her chair. What? What is this? Bank records, I said calmly. Every mortgage payment since Dad lost his job. Every medical bill for Mom's treatments. The new roof last summer. The property taxes. All paid from my account. That's impossible. He grabbed my phone, scrolling frantically through the transactions. These amounts, you can't. Can't what? Afford it? Funny how appearances can be deceiving. I took my phone back. You never asked what I actually do, Michael. You just assumed. Dad stood up slowly. Sarah, all this time. I nodded. You needed help. I could help. It seemed simple. But how? Michael sputtered. Your little web business is now one of the largest independent tech security firms in North America. I smiled slightly. Turns out all those hours in my room weren't spent on Netflix after all. Mom's tears flowed freely now. Why didn't you tell us? Because you needed to focus on healing, not worrying about paying bills. And because I looked at Michael. Some people need to learn the hard way not to judge what they don't understand. This is a joke, Michael said, but his voice wavered. Some kind of trick. Would you like to see the company financials too? The property deeds? Or maybe just next month's mortgage statement? I pulled up another screen. Oh look, it's due next week. Should I process the payment? Or would you like to handle it? He fell back onto the couch, face pale. Sarah, Dad's voice cracked. We never meant to. We should have. It's okay, Dad. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because I could. Because that's what family really means. Helping each other without keeping score. I looked pointedly at Michael, who couldn't meet my eyes. But since we're being honest now, I took a deep breath. There's something else you should know about the house. The silence in our living room was deafening. Mom had stopped crying, but her hands clutched her knitting needles like anchors. Dad stood frozen by his chair, and Michael looked like someone had just pulled the world out from under his feet. What about the house? Dad finally asked. I took a deep breath. Remember last year when the bank called about refinancing? That wasn't exactly what happened. Sarah, Mom's voice trembled. What did you do? I pulled another document up on my phone. The house was underwater. The previous mortgage was predatory. Interest rates set to spike. Balloon payments coming due. They were going to foreclose. Dad sank back into his chair. But they offered us new terms. No, I said gently. I bought the house, paid it off completely. The monthly payments you thought were going to the bank. They've been going into a savings account I set up for your retirement. The sound of shattering glass made everyone jump. Michael had dropped his water glass, shards spreading across the hardwood floor I'd had replaced last spring. You own our house, he whispered. Technically, it's in a trust, for Mom and Dad's benefit. They can live here as long as they want. Never have to worry about payments or maintenance. I looked at my brother, and no one can ever threaten to kick anyone out. Michael's face flushed dark red. The irony of his earlier outburst wasn't lost on him. Why keep this secret? Dad asked. All this time, we thought we were barely hanging on. Because you needed to feel normal, I said. After the layoff, after Mom's diagnosis, you needed stability, not charity. So I found a way to help without damaging your dignity. Dignity. Michael laughed sharply. You've been playing us like puppets, watching us struggle, letting us think. Letting you think what? I cut in. That I was a failure. That I needed your constant judgment and criticism. That somehow your unfinished PhD made you more successful than my little web business. He flinched. The company is worth $40 million. By the way, I added quietly. We're expanding into Europe next month. That's what those late-night calls in my room were about, coordinating with our teams in London and Berlin. Mom's knitting needles clattered to the floor. 40 million? Give or take a few million depending on the market. I shrugged. But that's not important right now. What's important is that you understand I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because I choose to be. But your car, Michael protested weakly. Your clothes. Our choices. I finished. I drive that car because it's reliable and paid for. I wear simple clothes because I'm comfortable in them. Not everyone needs to show off their success, Michael. Dad cleared his throat. The medical bills, your mother's treatments, all taken care of, including the experimental therapy they said insurance wouldn't cover. I smiled at Mom. That's why you've been feeling better lately. You've been getting the best care available, not just what we could afford. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks, but these weren't from sadness. I don't understand, Michael said, his voice small. Why let me treat you like that? Why not just tell me to shut up? Because you needed to learn something. I walked over to help him clean out the broken glass. Success isn't about appearances. It's not about titles or degrees or what other people think. It's about what you actually do, how you help others, how you build something real. As I carefully picked up the glass pieces, I continued. Every time you mocked my job, criticized my choices, tried to make me feel small, I was signing contracts worth more than your student loans. Every time you bragged about your future professor's salary, I was paying the property taxes on this house. Sarah, Mom interrupted, the savings account you mentioned has enough to cover your expenses for the next 30 years. I said, conservatively invested, professionally managed. You never have to worry about money again. Dad started to speak, but his voice caught. He tried again. We should have seen. No, I said firmly. You shouldn't have. That was the point. You needed to heal, to focus on each other, to get through the hard times without pride getting in the way. I could help, so I did. But now, Michael asked. Why tell us now? I stood up, glass shards tinkling in my palm. Because it's time. Because Mom's health is better, Dad's starting his consulting business, and you. I looked at him directly. You need to understand that the world is bigger than your assumptions. The grandfather clock in the hall, another quiet repair I'd arranged, chimed 9 times. Outside, a car pulled into our driveway, headlights sweeping across the living room windows. That's probably Jamie, I said, checking my phone. My CFO. We have some contracts to review. Here. Michael asked incredulously. Why not? It's my house. I smiled slightly. Well, technically, Mom and Dad's house. I just maintain it. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Mom started to get up, but I gestured for her to stay seated. There's one more thing you should know, I said, heading for the door. About that graduate housing that fell through. The doorbell chimed again as I reached for the handle. Behind me, I could feel my family's eyes following my every move, still trying to process everything they'd learned in the last hour. Jamie stood on the porch, elegant in her business suit despite the late hour, tablet in hand. Good evening, Ms. Anderson. I have those property documents you requested. Michael's sharp intake of breath told me he'd caught the significance of those words. Property documents? He asked weakly. I turned back to my family, letting Jamie step into the foyer. Remember how your graduate housing mysteriously fell through last month? Right after that incident with the department head? Michael's face went pale. He'd been bragging for weeks about telling off his supervisor, claiming academic integrity when really he'd missed several teaching deadlines. The University Housing Board didn't cancel your contract, I continued. I bought the building. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Mom's knitting needles, which she'd retrieved from the floor, went still. You? What? Michael collapsed onto the couch. Anderson Properties LLC purchased the graduate housing complex 3 weeks ago, Jamie explained professionally, along with several other university-adjacent properties. Dad's eyes widened. Anderson, your mother's maiden name. I nodded. It's easier to do business without the family connection sometimes, especially in real estate. So you kicked me out? Michael's voice cracked. To prove a point. No, I said softly. I terminated your housing contract because you were making life hell for the maintenance staff, ignoring building regulations, and treating the property manager, my employee, like she was beneath you. He flinched, remembering his words to the middle-aged woman who tried to talk to him about noise complaints. Actions have consequences, Michael. Even for family, especially for family. Jamie cleared her throat delicately. Should we review the quarterly reports now? In a moment, I turned back to my family. There's one last thing we need to discuss. Mom leaned forward in her chair. More secrets? No more secrets, I promised, but some choices to make. I sat down in the armchair opposite Michael, smoothing my simple skirt, a deliberate choice that now felt almost like a costume I no longer needed to wear. This house, your medical care, the savings account, it's all set up, irreversible. You'll never have to worry about money again. I looked at my parents, but Michael's situation is different. My brother stiffened. You have 2 options, I continued, meeting his eyes. Option 1. You can move back into graduate housing. Different building, same complex. Fresh start, clean slate. Keep working on your PhD, but with the understanding that actions have consequences and privilege comes with responsibility. And option 2, he asked quietly. Come work for me. Learn the business from the ground up, like I did. No shortcuts, no special treatment. Start in customer service, move up based on merit. Customer service? He almost choked. But I'm almost a PhD. And I'm a CEO who still answers client calls when needed, I replied. Success isn't a title, Michael. It's what you do with it. Jamie stepped forward, tablet ready. The employment contract is prepared, if you're interested. Standard entry-level position, full benefits, opportunity for advancement based on performance. Michael looked at the tablet, then at me, then at our parents. Why are you doing this? Because you're my brother, I said simply. And because everyone deserves a chance to learn from their mistakes. Even arrogant big brothers who think success only looks one way. Mom's eyes filled with tears again. Sarah, we never knew. You weren't supposed to know. I reminded her gently. But now you do. And things will be different. Different how? Dad asked. For starters, no more pretending. I'll still live here. When I'm not traveling for work. Because I want to, not because I have to. Mom's medical treatments will continue. But now you'll understand why money isn't an issue. And Michael, I turned back to my brother, you'll make your choice. PhD or customer service. But either way, you'll do it honestly, understanding exactly who's providing the opportunity. Michael sat quietly for a long moment, staring at his hands. Finally, he looked up, and I saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Respect. Customer service, he said quietly. I want to learn. Really learn. I nodded, hiding my surprise. Maybe he could grow after all. Jamie, the contract please. I took the tablet, signed it, and handed it to Michael. You start Monday. Don't be late. As he signed, his hand trembling slightly, Mom spoke up. What about your company? Your real life? This is my real life, Mom. All of it. The company, the properties, this house, this family. I just compartmentalized for a while. Now we can be honest. And the car? Dad asked, a slight smile playing at his lips. I laughed. The car stays. It reminds me where I started. Where we all started. Jamie cleared her throat again. Ms. Anderson, about those contracts? Right. I stood up. Family meeting adjourned. Michael, HR will email you orientation details. Mom, your next treatment is Thursday. I'll drive you. Dad, let's talk about your consulting business tomorrow. I have some contacts who might be interested. As I followed Jamie to my home office, formerly known as my little bedroom, I heard Michael ask quietly, the building manager I was rude to, is she still? She's your new supervisor. I called back without turning around. I suggest you practice your apology before Monday. The sound of his groan followed me down the hall, but under it, I heard something else. Mom's laughter, Dad's chuckle, the sounds of a family finding its footing in a new reality. Sometimes the biggest success isn't in what you build, but in how you reveal it. And sometimes the hardest person to prove yourself to isn't your family, but yourself. I'd done both. Now it was time to see what we could build together in the light of truth instead of the shadow of assumptions.
Go home. No one invited you here. My brother, Justin, appeared with a cruel smirk on his face, standing beside his new bride, Katie. The white dress she wore was bought with the money I sent. Behind them, I could hear our relatives laughing, as if this had all been a staged performance. Today was Justin's wedding day. I had driven 4 hours from Miami to arrive at the luxury resort in Florida, ready to celebrate my brother's big day. I had spent $8,000 on this wedding. Wearing an emerald green dress and diamond earrings, I came with every intention of offering my heartfelt congratulations. But what waited for me at the entrance was a humiliation I could never have imagined. "Lauren, what are you doing here?" My father, Robert, a broad-shouldered man with the build of a construction worker, blocked the doorway, his eyes cold. "I'm here for Justin's wedding." "The one I paid for," I replied. "I paid $8,000. I reserved this entire venue myself," I pleaded, holding the proof of payment in my hands. "You can't buy a family with money, Lauren." Justin's voice cut through like ice. "Maybe if you visited more often, if you actually cared about your family instead of just mailing checks, you'd be welcome here." In that moment, memories from the past few years flashed through my mind. The growing distance I'd felt on the phone with my mother, father's cold demeanor, the way I'd been slowly excluded from family gatherings. It all began to make a cruel kind of sense. "Where's Mom?" "I need to talk to her," I said, scanning the crowd. "She's inside, celebrating with the people who really love her," Justin said sharply. "We're not letting you ruin her special day with your guilt-tripping." I remembered the moment 3 years ago when my mother had suffered a stroke. I rushed to the hospital, ready to pause my career and stay by her side. But my mother took my hand and said, "Don't give up your dreams. Supporting me from afar is more than enough. Nothing makes me happier than seeing you succeed." So I followed her wishes. I sent money every month for her treatments, for her rehabilitation. Whenever my father or Justin needed financial help, I sent more. I returned home every month without fail to check on her. My father and Justin had agreed to this arrangement. My father used to thank me, saying, "Because of Lauren's income, we can get the best care." But over time, my father's attitude began to shift. He started accusing me of putting my career over the family, of being selfish. The rift grew, but I continued to support them financially, still believing I was part of this family. Even today's wedding, Justin asked me to cover all the costs, and I agreed. A part of me still hoped we could go back to the way things were before my mother fell ill. Now, whispers were rippling through the guests. Relatives and family friends were glancing at me, murmuring to one another, "That's Lauren, isn't it? I heard she's always working, never comes home. Justin told me she just sends money and leaves their mom's care to someone else." My heart froze. I had done everything I could for my mother, but the truth had been twisted. No one mentioned that the money I sent paid for professional caregivers to give her the highest quality care. No one spoke of the warm hours I spent with her during my monthly visits. "You should have thought of this when you chose success over family," my father said coldly. "This event is for real family." His words cut deeper than any blade. Over the years, Justin had slowly, methodically pushed me out. He'd used my mother's memory loss after her stroke to erase my presence, rewriting me as a cold, self-centered daughter. I had long sensed that my success stirred something bitter in Justin. Last Christmas, he mocked me. Still pretending to be a businesswoman in Miami? His jealousy couldn't be more obvious. "Living in some penthouse thinking you're a celebrity?" he growled, gripping a beer bottle. "You think throwing money around makes you family? You have no idea how hard it's been to take care of Mom." But the truth was, he relied on my money. The caregiving he spoke of, left entirely to the professionals I paid for. I tried to defend myself. "I visit every month. I've covered every." "You did it to escape your guilt," he spat. The hypocrisy in Justin's words left me breathless. My success, the bond I shared with our mother, and her pride in what I had achieved, those were things he simply couldn't bear. "It's funny that you're the one saying that," I said, my voice shaking. "I sacrificed everything for this family. And now you expect us to be grateful?" Hatred flashed in his eyes. "You think you're better than us just because you got lucky? You're not a real CEO, you run some tiny hotel. That's supposed to be impressive." Let me tell you, Mom doesn't even remember half the things you paid for. At least I'm here. At least I'm being a real son. Something broke inside me at those words. Since that Christmas, my mother's phone calls had been reduced to financial requests. She sounded confused, distant. The woman who once believed in my dreams now only remembered my bank account. My father, too, had become entrenched in entitlement. "Your mom needs you," he'd say during his monthly urgent funding calls. "Family takes care of family." A daughter abandoning that duty, it's unnatural. I tried to explain that financial support wasn't abandonment, but to them, love without physical presence wasn't real. It was simply a convenient funding source for their lifestyle. The hardest part was my mother's memory loss. The woman who once celebrated every one of my achievements couldn't even remember that I'd been paying for her care. She didn't remember the monthly visits either. "Justin says you look down on us now," she once said to me, her voice hazy with confusion. Is that true? It didn't matter what I said. Justin had already poisoned her mind. I was the daughter who had abandoned her family. The one who chose money over love. Justin had used my mother's memory issues to distort my words and rewrite history. He painted me as cold, selfish, and uncaring. And my father believed every word of it. The medical bills I paid every month, the support I provided during every family emergency, they accepted all of it, while erasing me from the picture. And now, even at this family milestone, Justin's wedding, they wanted me gone. "I understand now," I said, keeping my composure as fragile glass. "This is your receipt." I looked my father in the eye. "Please tell Mom I love her. And I hope she enjoys the party I paid for." I handed him the payment confirmation, stood tall, and walked away. Behind me, I heard Justin's victorious laughter joined by Katie's shrill giggle. But this humiliation was only the beginning. I made my way to the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel of my Tesla, trying to steady my breath. Then, a knock at the window. "I'm Katie's brother. Daniel Irving." He stood there, concerned. Miss Smith." He seemed nervous as he spoke. "Just Lauren is fine," I replied, rolling the window halfway down. "But how do you know my name?" Daniel glanced back toward the venue, then looked at me again. "I work for Smith Hotel Consulting in Miami. I manage operations at the Coral Gables Grand Hotel." My mind raced through our org chart. Under Regional Director Jessica Hansen? I recognized the name immediately. A highly capable manager who had joined about 2 months ago. She oversaw one of the top hotels in Miami. And now I realized Daniel was Justin's brother-in-law. "Does Justin know you work at my company?" "I've been busy," Daniel said with a dry laugh. "I told him I switched to a new hotel job." He didn't ask much, and Katie knows the company name, but neither of them ever connected the dots, you being the CEO. The irony was sharp. Daniel didn't report to me directly, but I was, without a doubt, his ultimate boss. "May I sit?" he asked, gesturing toward the passenger seat. "There's something important I need to tell you." I unlocked the door. Daniel slid in, his tall frame filling the car with uneasy tension. "I should have said something back there," he began. "What they did to you was completely wrong." "Then why didn't you?" The question came out sharper than I intended. "It's complicated family politics," he sighed. "I've only been part of this family for about 6 months. I'm still learning how toxic they really are." "Well, now you've seen them at their best," I said bitterly. "Last night at the rehearsal dinner," he continued, "Justin and your father discussed what to do if you showed up. It was planned. Your mother wasn't part of that conversation." A chill ran through me. My humiliation wasn't accidental, it was a cruel performance, carefully planned in advance. "Does Mom know I was coming?" "She was expecting you. But Justin told her you declined the invitation weeks ago." It was a lie. Then he dropped something even more shocking. Justin's been poisoning your relationship with your parents for years. Subtle comments, reframing your absence as rejection, exaggerating arguments. And with your mother's mild memory issues, he's been helping manage her schedule and even her medications. While I was building a career in Miami, Justin had been constructing a completely different narrative in Florida. I had been painted as the cruel daughter who abandoned her family and antagonist who sacrificed her loved ones for corporate success. Why are you telling me this? Your sister is marrying him. Because what happened back there wasn't okay. And also at work I've seen how you treat people. With respect, fairness, real care. The professional I know as Lauren doesn't match the villain Justin describes. Honestly, it disgusts me to see my boss publicly humiliated by my new in-laws. His honesty gave me strength. I could have walked away, but it was time the truth came out. Okay, it's time everyone heard the real story. Including Mom. We began walking back to the venue. This confrontation wasn't something I had planned, but maybe it was exactly what this family needed. And now, with Daniel, an unexpected ally, I was finally ready to face the years of lies and manipulation. Walking back into the reception felt like stepping into a hostile shareholder meeting. I was about to expose the ugly truth in front of 80 guests sipping cocktails and appetizers I had paid for. A slideshow was playing, filled with family photos I wasn't in despite being the one who funded the entire celebration. At the head table, my mother sat wearing a soft yellow dress that complemented her complexion, looking both confused and slightly dazed. She nodded at whatever Justin was telling her but clearly struggled to follow the conversation. Justin spotted us first. His face went pale. But it was already too late. Daniel stepped forward and raised his voice over the gradually quieting room. "Everyone, I'd like to introduce Justin's sister, Lauren Smith." Then, perfectly timed, he added, "And also my CEO at Smith Hotel Consulting." Silence. Total and complete. My mother's head shot up. She looked at me, eyes wide with confusion, then pure joy. "Lauren, you came." She tried to rise to her feet, fumbling her napkin. Justin stormed toward us, his face red with rage. "Daniel, what the hell are you doing?" "Just telling the truth," Daniel answered plainly. My father appeared next, his expression murderous. "We made it clear at the entrance." "You did?" I replied, calm and unflinching. "But there seems to be a major misunderstanding about who actually paid for this celebration." My mother slowly walked over, looking between us with growing concern. "What's going on, Robert? Why are you so angry?" "Lauren, I'm so happy you're here." The look of genuine joy on her face confirmed what Daniel had told me. She truly hadn't known what happened at the door. "Mom," I said, taking her frail hand as she approached, "I need to ask you something important. Did you really think I didn't want to celebrate Justin's wedding?" She blinked, her face clouded with confusion. "Justin told me you were too busy with that big hotel deal." "I never said that," I replied firmly. "In fact, I transferred $8,000 to pay for this entire venue and cleared my schedule to drive here from Miami." "Then why?" Her eyes darted wildly between Justin and my father. "They turned me away at the door," I said. "Justin and Dad told me this celebration wasn't for me, that it was for real family, even though I paid for it." My mother's face shifted from confusion to fear. "Robert, is that true?" My father's face turned crimson. "Katie, I wanted to talk to you about what she's been saying about family. She said no such thing." My mother cut in, her voice stronger than I'd heard in years. "Lauren is my daughter. Of course she should be welcomed at her brother's wedding." The reception fell deathly silent, quiet enough to hear the champagne fizzing in people's glasses. As the entire party turned to witness our family's unraveling, I continued. "There has been a pattern. For years, my financial support was welcomed while my presence was rejected. My success was twisted into abandonment. my generosity recast as obligation. Justin stepped forward. This is inappropriate, Lauren. There's a time and place, and my wedding day isn't it. You always make everything about money, and that is exactly what I came to say, I said, raising my voice to address the entire room. That portrayal of me obsessed with money, emotionally absent, was a fabricated story. It's not the truth. I turned to Daniel. What did Justin say about me? Daniel didn't hesitate. He said you were cold, obsessed with money, that you look down on the family. That's absolutely not true, I said, with a steely calm. Justin's composure shattered completely. You don't get it, do you? He shouted. You got lucky, Miss CEO, part of the elite now, acting like you've forgotten us. While I've been stuck here, going nowhere. And even then, Mom always talks about you, even when I'm here every single day. His outburst silenced the entire reception. Justin, my mother said softly, I've never compared you to Lauren. I love you both, just in different ways. Then, why are you always thanking her for the medical bills? Justin's voice cracked, anger brimming with tears. She pays for everything. All the bills, every emergency, every luxury we ask for, and you treat her like she's some kind of saint. I stood stunned. His financial dependence had turned into shame, and that shame had twisted into resentment. My father had been uncharacteristically quiet until he finally spoke. This is a conversation that should be continued in private. No, my mother said, her voice surprisingly firm. I'm tired of the lies and manipulation in this family. She turned to the wedding guests. Everyone, I'm so sorry. Please enjoy the celebration. My family and I need to have an honest conversation. She pointed toward a small side room. My father, Justin, Daniel, and I followed her in. As the door closed behind us, I caught a glimpse of stunned faces and hushed whispers ripping across the reception. Inside the small room, my mother took control. The full scope of my financial support was finally revealed. Please, everyone have a seat. We obeyed like guilty children facing a judge. Robert, she began, turning to my father. Did you really send our daughter away from a wedding she paid for? He shifted uncomfortably. I was trying to protect the family. I couldn't forgive what she said about us. And what exactly did she say? She pressed him. In her own words, not Justin's version. My father looked genuinely confused. She said we were beneath her, that she was too successful to waste time with us. I never said that, I cut in quietly. I did say that I sacrificed everything to financially support this family. That part is true, but it wasn't an attack. It was a desperate plea for recognition after Justin accused me of being heartless. My mother turned to Justin. Have you been deliberately poisoning our relationship with Lauren? His bravado crumbled beneath her direct gaze. I was just tired of living in her shadow. Lauren shows up with a check and gets to be the hero. Everyone's grateful. And then she disappears again. Just because she pays for Mom's medical care, she gets all the praise. The pieces were finally falling into place. Justin's calculated manipulation, his exploitation of my mother's memory loss, the twisting of my words, everything was finally brought to light. Then, Daniel spoke unexpectedly. The Lauren I know as a CEO doesn't match the villain Justin described. Justin turned on him, betrayal blazing in his eyes. You're taking her side? Your boss over your own family? This isn't about sides, Daniel said firmly. It's about telling the truth. I want a fresh start, I said into the silence. For all of us. But it has to be built on complete honesty. No more manipulation. No more gatekeeping. And no more accepting my money while erasing my presence. My mother reached out with trembling fingers and took my hand. I want that too. I've missed you, Lauren. More than you could ever know. My father cleared his throat awkwardly. If what you're saying is accurate, then perhaps there were some misunderstandings. It wasn't a full apology, but from my father it was revolutionary. Justin remained silent, shameful tears now streaming down his face. A month after the truth came out, I was entering a new chapter of my life. Back in my penthouse office in Miami, I finally had time to reflect on everything that had happened with my family. The first sign of change came in the form of a phone call from my father. "Lauren, you were right. I misunderstood you for so many years," my father said. "I believed everything Justin told me and downplayed everything you've done." There was a humility in his voice I hadn't heard since I was a child. "I can't trust that right away, Dad. But I'll be watching your actions going forward." My mother's call struck even deeper. "I missed you so much. I let Justin make me forget you had been coming all along. I'm starting to remember now how important our time together was. The time we spent, the sweets I brought that she loved, the shows we watched together, the days I encouraged her through rehab memories Justin had tried to erase were returning. I missed you too, Mom. But this time, let's build something different. A relationship that's honest. One without manipulation." But the most important decision I made was to set financial boundaries. I stopped all automatic payments to the family and established new rules. First, all requests for money had to come with a clear explanation of use. Second, emergencies were to be defined only true medical or essential living issues qualified. Third, every form of support now came with conditions and time limits. I continued paying for my mother's medical and rehab expenses, but everything else would be evaluated individually. "This isn't a punishment," I explained to them. "It's a healthy boundary. Love is not the same as financial dependence." 2 months later, my mother visited Miami for the first time. It was her chance to finally see what I had built. "It's incredible," she said, as she toured my penthouse and company headquarters. "What you've created here. I'm so glad I didn't ask you to give it all up when I got sick. This is where you belong." Watching her interact with my staff brought me unexpected peace. This wasn't money-obsessed Lauren from the twisted family narrative. This was the reality Lauren, a CEO with vision and integrity. But my relationship with Justin was beyond repair. 3 months after the confrontation at the wedding, tragic news reached me. Katie had filed for divorce. The truth coming out, the tension with Daniel, and facing financial reality had all broken their marriage. They fought constantly about money, Daniel told me. Katie couldn't accept that Justin couldn't support them without your help. I got one call from Justin. "Everything has fallen apart," he said, his voice hollow. "Katie left. I'm broke. Mom hates me. You must be happy." "I'm not happy," I answered truthfully. "But this is the path you chose. It's the result of years of lies and manipulation. So you won't forgive me? We're family?" After a long pause, I said, "It's because we're family that I can't forgive what you did. You used Mom's memory loss to destroy my relationship with her. That was cruel, cowardly, unforgivable. So this is it? You're cutting me off?" "Yes. I'm never speaking to you again. You are no longer part of my life." I later heard that Justin had fallen into alcoholism, was job hopping, and living alone in a rundown apartment, but I didn't reach out. A year later, I live by a new definition of family. My parents and I speak once a month, brief, honest calls. They now pay for their own flights to visit me in Miami, and I occasionally stop by Florida. But these visits come from a place of genuine intention. No manipulation. No hidden financial asks. No Justin poisoning the well. Family love may be unconditional, but relationships require boundaries. "I'm so proud of your success," my mother said in a recent call. "I'm glad I told you to keep working back then. I'm so glad I didn't let your dreams die. I have no regrets about cutting off Justin. I spent years hoping he would change. But sometimes you can't save someone. Sometimes saving yourself is enough. My company has continued to grow. Last year, we successfully expanded into the Caribbean. I've earned industry recognition and was even nominated for CEO of the Year. But more importantly, I no longer let my worth be defined by family guilt or financial demands. My value comes from what I've built, the people I respect, and the way I choose to live with honesty and strength. The confrontation at the wedding was one of the most painful moments of my life. But it was also the beginning of my liberation. The truth can be brutal, but it weighs far less than a lie. Today, I live the life I always wanted: successful, independent, and a woman who bows to no one's manipulation. My name is Wendy Ford, and I'm 32 years old. After graduating from a prestigious university with a degree in computer science, I chose to become a police officer despite my family's strong objections. Over the past 10 years, I've built a solid career, solved numerous cases, and earned the respect of both colleagues and superiors. Yet, no matter how much I achieve, I've never gained my family's approval. To them, I'm still just a beat cop handing out traffic tickets. Out on the roadside again today? That's how my mother, Susan, opens nearly every monthly family call, her tone dripping with the implication that my job is somehow beneath me. I know patrol must be tiring, but maybe it's time you aimed a little higher? She talks as if my work is some kind of burden on society. I've explained this so many times, I reply, my voice heavy with exhaustion. But she never listens. My father, Thomas, is a senior manager at a major tech company. My younger sister, Kelly, is pursuing her PhD in computer science at an elite graduate school. Whenever we gather as a family, the conversation revolves around Kelly's research or my father's latest promotion. My work is reduced to a single dismissive comment like, "Still doing that job?" It's hard watching a brilliant mind like yours wasting away in law enforcement, my father says every time. All your classmates are thriving in Silicon Valley, and you're still riding around in a patrol car. He always trails off, but the words left unsaid doing a meaningless job hang in the air. Kelly is the most blunt of them all. "You've always been good at running from reality," she once told her friends in front of me. "You didn't want real competition, so you put on a uniform and hid behind authority. You were so smart in college, what a waste." I've tried again and again to explain the complexity and importance of my work, how intellectually demanding and socially vital it is. Decision-making under pressure, analyzing evidence, navigating psychological games with criminals, applying legal knowledge in real time. Every day presents new challenges. But my family refuses to hear it. To them, I'm just an example of a wasted education. Even when I tell them about a promotion, my mother says, "Did your salary go up?" Still probably less than half of what people in Silicon Valley make. If I receive an award, my father brushes it off. A local honor, right? Not a national one, I assume not. No matter how hard I work or how much I achieve, it's never enough. And the irony? They don't even know that I work at the federal level. Kelly once said to me, "You seriously need to wake up. You're going to be a cop forever." Ryan, my fiancé, is a top-tier professional. It's embarrassing that my sister's a police officer. I'd never even met Ryan. I didn't know what he did for a living. But her words cut deep. That was the moment I decided to stop telling them anything about my job. If they weren't willing to understand, I didn't need their understanding. I would simply keep walking my path quietly, on my own terms. What hurt the most, though, was how my family took my financial support for granted. At first, I gave because I so desperately wanted their love and approval. They say you can't buy love, but that's exactly what I was trying to do. When they wouldn't recognize my worth through my profession, I tried to show it through money. I paid for our annual family vacations, Hawaii, cruises, you name it. Each trip cost $10,000 to $20,000, and I never said a word. Where should we go this year? My father would ask excitedly every spring. How about Italy? Kelly would love that. That sounds wonderful. My mother's eyes would light up. Wendy, we're counting on you again. And I would tell myself, this will make them happy. They'll need me. Maybe they'll finally appreciate me. If they look down on my career, I could at least be useful financially. Kelly demanded luxury suites like it was her right, and my mother savored every high-end dinner. To outsiders, they claimed the trips were a result of our shared family savings. In reality, I funded everything from my own salary. Every time I saw their smiling faces on those trips, I told myself maybe now they'll see my value. But no one ever questioned how a traffic cop could afford it all. There was never a word of gratitude, just casual remarks like, well, she's a government employee, so her income must be stable, or it's good to have a practical daughter like her. I had tried to buy love, but all I received in return was indifference and dismissal. The very support I gave, hoping to be loved, only reinforced their disregard. But back at work, I felt the trust and respect of my colleagues and superiors. The gratitude from victims and their families when a case was solved. And the deep sense of purpose that comes from serving society. That's what kept me going. And yet, the longing for my family's approval never fully disappeared. I still wonder, will there ever come a day when they see me for who I really am? The truth is, my career as a police officer has led me down a far more specialized and vital path than they ever imagined. In my third year on the force, I was assigned to the cybercrime division. It was the first time I truly got to use my computer science degree. Each day brought new challenges: hacking cases, online fraud, corporate espionage, child exploitation takedowns, complex digital crimes of the modern age that constantly pushed my mind to its limits. My analytical skills and technical expertise quickly stood out. Whether it was reverse engineering malware, decrypting encrypted communications, or recovering digital evidence, everything I'd learned in university had finally found its place. Some colleagues even began calling me a genius. One of the most memorable cases was the takedown of an international cybercrime organization. After 3 years of ongoing damage across multiple countries, we uncovered their methods and helped bring the ringleader to justice. At age 28, that case led to a recruitment call from the FBI. "We've been waiting for someone like you," said Deputy Director Lucy Johnson, the recruiter. "We'd like you to join the FBI Cyber Division and take on assignments that are critical to national security. The salary will be more than double what you earn now." In the FBI Cyber Division, my area of expertise became oversight of defense contractors and critical infrastructure firms. Any security breach in these sectors posed a direct threat to national safety. We were tasked with identifying and preventing cyber attacks targeting power grids, telecommunications networks, military contractors, and government agencies. I was granted clearance to access top-tier corporate secrets, question C-level executives directly, and issue cease and desist orders when necessary. As a federal agent, I held jurisdiction that extended across state lines. Every case I handled carried potential damages in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Including bonuses and allowances, my annual income reached $140,000 more than my father's. But I never told my family. No mention of promotions. No talk of the high-profile cases I cracked. No sharing of the awards I received. If they would never understand, then why keep setting myself up for disappointment? Even when they asked, "How's work been lately?" I would reply with a flat, "Same as always or nothing new." They had no idea I was an FBI special agent. They couldn't even begin to imagine I worked on matters involving national security. Deputy Director Johnson trusted me completely. Agent Ford's analysis is always precise. Her judgment is consistently reliable, she once told senior staff. By the time I turned 30, I had been promoted to team leader, becoming one of the most promising young agents in the department. My team affectionately referred to me as the legendary agent because of my cool head, sharp decisions, and unwavering resolve. The respect I received at work was real. They recognized my abilities for what they truly were and acknowledged my contributions. In stark contrast to my family's dismissiveness, my workplace valued me fully and fairly. My colleagues respected me, my team looked up to me, and my superiors trusted me. Here, I wasn't a wasted talent in law enforcement. I was a specialist on the front lines of national security. And yet, to my family, I was still just handing out traffic tickets. There had been many chances to tell them the truth. But their prejudice ran so deep, I no longer had the energy to fight it. They would never see me for who I truly was. One day, while reviewing a list of companies under surveillance, I spotted a familiar name: my father's employer, Tech Defense Solutions, a mid-sized firm developing military software. Recent audits had flagged serious cybersecurity lapses. As I stared at the listing, I couldn't help but feel the irony. Still, professional ethics came first. I didn't disclose my family connection to anyone and proceeded as I would with any other case. Not even Deputy Director Johnson was informed. There was no room for personal emotion in this job. Soon, a full-scale inspection of my father's company was authorized. The cybersecurity deficiencies were deemed a threat to national security. When I was appointed lead investigator, I realized this might be the perfect opportunity to finally show my family the truth. But alongside that realization came a wave of conflicted emotions born from years of being dismissed. On the day of the inspection, I dressed in my formal black suit, projecting the full authority of an FBI special agent as I arrived at Tech Defense Solutions. But something unexpected awaited me. As I parked my car, I spotted my mother and Kelly standing in front of the building. Why were they at my father's company parking lot? I stopped in my tracks. I hadn't anticipated this at all. Just then, my father walked out the main entrance. "Good work today, Dad." Kelly's voice rang out. "You're almost done for the day, right?" "Yeah, just wrapping things up. Let's go grab dinner like we planned." "Where should we go?" My mother asked with a smile. "How about that Italian place Kelly's been dying to try?" "Perfect. I wanted to invite Ryan, but he's working late today. Mom and I will wait for you at the cafe across the street," Kelly said, a little disappointed. They were planning a nice dinner together, waiting for my father to finish his day. I composed myself and walked toward the building. Maybe this was fate. A chance to finally show them who I really was. I pulled out my badge and approached the building's entrance, carrying myself with the full authority of an FBI special agent. Just then, Ryan Hansen appeared behind me. "Agent Ford, good afternoon," he said respectfully. "I'll be assisting with today's inspection, as always, under your lead." The moment he spoke, Kelly turned around and gasped. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" She rushed over, delighted. "I had no idea you'd be here. What a lovely surprise." But my mother's confused whisper broke through the excitement. "Boss, that young woman? That back, she looks oddly familiar." I turned around. And in that moment I watched their faces change. The color drained from my father's face. "Wendy?" My mother froze, mouth slightly open. What? Kelly stared at me for several seconds before stammering. "Wendy? Why are you here? Why are you wearing a suit?" Ryan looked between me and my family, clearly confused. Is there a problem?" I replied calmly. "No problem. Let's proceed with the inspection as scheduled." But my father cut in with a shaky voice. "Wendy, you're an FBI special agent?" "Yes," I said plainly. "I'm Special Agent Wendy Ford with the FBI. I'm here today to conduct a cybersecurity inspection of this facility." Kelly turned to Ryan. "Did you just call my sister your boss?" Ryan looked even more confused. "Yes, Agent Ford is my direct supervisor. She leads our team." Then he looked back at Kelly, his expression stunned. "Kelly, you thought your sister was a patrol officer." "She is," Kelly replied, visibly flustered. "I mean, she was. Why the FBI? Why is she your boss?" Ryan spoke with deep respect in his voice. "Agent Ford is the most brilliant person on our team. Everyone respects her. I had no idea she was your sister. I'm genuinely shocked and impressed." Apparently, Kelly had only ever referred to me as a cop. She hadn't told him how condescendingly she viewed me, but the attitude had always been there. I allowed myself a small smile inside. The embarrassing cop sister Kelly always talked about was also the legendary boss her fiancé deeply admired. And now they had to face the reality that the woman they dismissed as just a traffic cop was the person Ryan respected the most. My mother spoke again, her voice trembling. "Her direct supervisor? Wendy? But she's a police officer. She works at a station." I cut in, still composed. "I've been with the FBI for 5 years." My father staggered back and sank into a nearby chair. "Then you're the one leading today's inspection?" "Yes, I'm the lead investigator for this case," I confirmed. A heavy silence fell over the group. I turned to Ryan. "Mr. Hansen, let's put personal matters aside for now. Work comes first." Ryan replied quickly. "Yes, Agent Ford. My apologies." Silence again. My family stood frozen, finally beginning to grasp that the daughter they had dismissed for a decade now held a position far beyond what they'd ever imagined. Leaving behind my stunned mother and Kelly, Ryan, my father, and I entered the building to begin the inspection. As the inspection progressed, I shed any personal feelings and fully stepped into my role as a sharp, disciplined investigator. My father observed from another room. His expression shifted gradually as he watched me in action. "There are major vulnerabilities in your firewall configuration," I told the lead technician firmly, standing beside Ryan. Your system is currently wide open to external breaches. The technician looked overwhelmed by my technical assessment. You're absolutely right, Agent Ford. We'll begin corrections immediately. Corrections alone are not sufficient, I said calmly. A full overhaul is necessary. This is a matter of national security. My father, witnessing my authority and expertise firsthand, had no choice but to begin accepting the truth. I heard him muttering under his breath. Her questions are precise. She spots our weaknesses instantly. I had no idea my daughter had this level of expertise. Toward the end of the inspection, I made a critical announcement. As a result of this audit, we've identified multiple serious security violations within this company. These constitute significant threats to national security. My father's face turned pale. Serious violations? To what extent? The details will be provided in a formal written report, I replied in a detached, procedural tone. If these issues are not addressed, termination of federal contracts will be considered. Additionally, Director Thomas Ford may be held accountable for management failures. My father sank deeper into his chair, overwhelmed by the humiliation and confusion of being reprimanded professionally by his own daughter. As the inspection wrapped up, I addressed the staff, including my father, with composure. Thank you, everyone. Let's ensure this doesn't happen again moving forward. When Ryan and I exited the building, we found my mother and Kelly still standing outside. Kelly's voice trembled. Wendy, we need to talk. I'm on duty. If you have something to discuss, we'll have to do it later. My mother said, her eyes filled with tears. Wendy, we didn't know. Not knowing doesn't justify dismissing me, I responded coldly. For 10 years, you've continuously denied the validity of my choices and the value of who I am. Ryan, who had been standing silently, finally spoke, his smile from earlier now gone, replaced by confusion. Agent Ford, Wendy, He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. At first, I was genuinely proud to find out that Kelly's sister was my most respected supervisor. But now... He glanced between my father, my mother, and Kelly, reading the discomfort and shock still etched on their faces. Now, seeing all of your reactions, Ryan continued carefully. It's as if none of you had any idea she was an FBI special agent. And why are you so shocked? Kelly quickly tried to interrupt. Ryan, that's... Kelly, he said quietly, cutting her off. You told me your sister was a police officer. But now I'm seeing reactions that suggest you and your parents never truly respected her job at all. My mother rushed to explain. No, it's just a misunderstanding. Ryan looked at me and spoke apologetically. Agent Ford, I think I'm beginning to understand the situation. It seems that your family... Mr. Hansen, I said firmly, cutting him off. We'll schedule a proper conversation another time. But going forward, please keep our professional and personal relationships clearly separate. Let's head back. Ryan's expression revealed a mix of confusion and unease as he began to realize the truth that my family had been underestimating me all along. In his eyes, I could see not just guilt toward me, but a new uncertainty about the family he was planning to join. Now that the truth was out, there was no going back to the way things had been. As we drove away, I reflected on the past 10 years, how I had endured their disregard while quietly supporting them financially. Perhaps it was finally time to settle the score. 1 week later, I gathered my family at our childhood home. The atmosphere in the living room was completely different from a week earlier. My father looked drained, my mother anxious, and Kelly had clearly been crying. Ryan sat beside them, his expression tense. "Thank you all for coming today," I said calmly. "There's something important I need to address." I placed a stack of bank statements and receipts on the table. "First, I'd like to go over the financial support I've provided over the past 10 years. Their faces went pale. "For years, I've supported this family financially. But as of today, that support ends." I delivered the words with clinical precision. "The Hawaii trip scheduled for next month has been canceled. Flights and hotel bookings have been voided, and I've already recovered the $3,000 in cancellation fees. Considering future expenses, it's a small price to pay." My father tried to stop me, flustered. "Wendy, please wait. We're sorry. Truly. We didn't realize you held such a position. The annual salary for an FBI special agent is $140,000. That's how I was able to afford all that support. Did none of you ever wonder? Did you really think a traffic cop could cover all of this?" My mother, tears falling, whispered, We never thought about it." "It's not that you didn't think about it," I corrected her coldly. "It's that you chose not to. Because continuing to belittle me allowed you to maintain a false sense of superiority." Kelly broke down crying. "I was wrong, Wendy. I'm so sorry. I do not accept your apology." My voice was firm. "This isn't something that can be resolved with a simple sorry after 10 years of constant belittlement. From this moment forward, I will have no further contact with any of you." My father jumped in, flustered. "Wendy, please, we're still family." "Family?" I gave a dry laugh. "If we're family, then why did you spend a decade denying who I am? If we're family, why couldn't you respect the path I chose?" Kelly's voice cracked in desperation. "What are we supposed to do, Wendy? How can we make this right? There is no forgiveness." I stood up. "As of today, I am cutting all ties with you." My mother clung to my arms, sobbing. "Wendy, you're my daughter. We're blood." "Blood means nothing without respect," I said, brushing her off. "Have you ever, even once, been proud of me as your daughter? As your sister?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably before speaking. I had no idea your family treated you like this. I never imagined they disregarded your work so deeply, Agent Ford." "You bear no responsibility, Ryan," I told him. "But you should carefully reconsider your relationship with Kelly. It's important to understand the values of those closest to you, especially when those values include looking down on others." From that night on, everything changed. Later, I heard that intense arguments erupted at home after I left. The next morning, Ryan called. "Agent Ford, no Wendy." His voice was heavy, like he hadn't slept all night. "I spoke at length with Kelly last night." I stayed silent, listening. "To be honest, I was shaken," he continued. "It devastated me to learn that the supervisor I respect most was constantly disrespected by her own family. When I pressed Kelly for the truth, she told me about the past 10 years, and I just couldn't accept it. Ryan, I've called off the engagement." His voice was resolute. "I can't marry someone who disrespects the person I admire most. And frankly, I've started to question Kelly's values too. Judging people based on their job titles, looking down on her own sister, I can't live with that mindset. A few days later, Kelly called me in tears. "Wendy, Ryan broke off the engagement. He said it's all my fault. He blamed my values, our family's values. He said it was all because of me." I replied evenly. "That was his decision." I said nothing to him. "But we're family, aren't we? Please talk to him. Help me fix this." Her voice was desperate. "I can't live without him," I said quietly. "That's your problem, not mine." She kept sobbing. "I was wrong, I know that now. But is it really too late? Can't I fix it?" "There are things in life that can't be undone," I said. "These are the consequences of your choices. The result of 10 years of disrespect and arrogance." In the wake of the audit, my father was demoted. He went from department director to section chief. His salary dropped significantly. My mother tried to call me several times to apologize. I never answered. A few months later, I moved into a new apartment. A bright, spacious home in one of DC's elite neighborhoods. There were no family photos on display. Instead, I framed commendations, photos with colleagues, and newspaper clippings from resolved cases. One day, Deputy Director Johnson dropped by my office. "Agent Ford, how have you been? I heard you've been dealing with some family matters." "I'm doing very well," I said with a smile. "Now that I'm free from seeking their approval, I've been able to focus fully on my work. I've gained more confidence in my own judgment." "I'm glad to hear that," she replied warmly. "It's never easy when family doesn't understand, but staying true to yourself matters more. Your work has been exceptional. We're proud of you." As I looked out the window, I realized something. The approval I had spent so many years chasing no longer held power over me. I had found clarity in my own decisions. I had learned to validate myself. Word eventually reached me that Kelly dropped out of grad school and became reclusive. After the breakup, she lost motivation for her research and sank into depression. My father, crushed by his demotion, was said to be considering early retirement. My mother, oddly enough, had begun telling the neighbors with pride, "My daughter works for the FBI." But none of that mattered to me anymore. Whether they were struggling or finally regretting their past, it was the outcome of their own choices. Ryan, meanwhile, was promoted and now serves as one of my most trusted subordinates. Every now and then, he asks me how Kelly is doing. I always give the same reply. That's not my concern anymore. 6 months later, I made a major breakthrough. I led the takedown of an international cyber terrorist network, preventing a large-scale attack on U.S. critical infrastructure. For that, I received the Director's Award from the FBI, and the story was covered by national news outlets. My parents tried to call to congratulate me. I didn't answer. A voicemail from my father said, "We're so proud of you. We tell everyone about you." I deleted it without listening to the rest. I had fully freed myself from a life dependent on their recognition. And for the first time, I was truly living on my own terms. At work, some people call me the Ice Queen. But I wear it as a badge of honor, proof of my composure, my unshakable resolve. I have no regrets. I lost the conditional love and support of my family. But in return, I gained self-respect and independence. It was a painful choice, but the right one. Family approval and affection are important, yes. But if they come with conditions, then maybe they're not worth having at all. I've learned to recognize my own worth and to walk my own path. That's the life I've chosen. I no longer need to meet anyone's expectations. I no longer need anyone's permission to feel proud. I will live my life with pride just as I am. Thomas Gale's retirement party, April 15th, 6 p.m. The invitation arrived at the end of March. The envelope was a pale cream color, addressed in the familiar round handwriting of my aunt, Hilary. The wording was simple and formal, but inside the envelope, there was also a personal letter from her. Dear Tracy, I hope you're doing well. I'm writing to you about your father's retirement party. As you know, I'm the only one in the family who stayed in touch with you. 15 years is a long time. But I'm hoping that, just this once, you'll consider showing up. I want to help mend things between us. Aunt Hilary. My hands trembled slightly as I held the letter. No one in the family had contacted me directly since that testimony. Aunt Hilary was the only one who stayed in touch, sending me the occasional email or letter. I read her words over and over. Should I go or not? My heart wavered violently. If I went, it would surely be painful. My father might refuse to even look at me. My mother and Kevin wouldn't welcome me either. 15 years of silence had carved a deep chasm between us. I didn't need much imagination to feel its weight. But at the same time, this might be the last opportunity. He had already passed retirement age, and this April, he was finally stepping down. If I skipped this party, I might never have a chance to face my family again. I sat at my desk and picked up a pen. I intended to write a letter declining the invitation, but my hand wouldn't move. Why should I keep running away? I hadn't done anything wrong. I testified for the sake of justice, and I've been walking my own path ever since. Hilary's words echoed in my mind. I want to help mend things. She had been the only one standing between me and the rest of the family for these 15 years. I couldn't just ignore her request. Just one more time. I whispered to myself. One more time I'd try to face my family. And even if that truly marked the end of our relationship, at least I could say I tried. The next day, I wrote her a brief reply. Dear Aunt Hilary, thank you for your letter. I will attend Dad's retirement party. However, please understand this might be the last time. Tracy. After mailing it, I exhaled deeply. My emotions were tangled nervousness and hope, dread and resolve. But once I had made the decision, there was no turning back. It had been 15 years. It was the corruption scandal involving Daniel Anderson, my father's longtime friend and a powerful figure in the local construction industry. Bid rigging on public projects and embezzlement of funds. At the time, I was a graduate student studying constitutional law, and I took the stand as a witness for the prosecution. I took the witness stand for the prosecution and calmly recounted only the facts. But those facts led to Daniel's conviction. The fallout had a deep impact on my father. His long association with Daniel came under scrutiny, and his reputation was severely damaged. He faced questioning from the city council, intense media coverage, and cold stares from colleagues. There was even talk of resignation, but he fought to clear his name and managed to stay in his position. Over the years, he gradually rebuilt his trust and remained in the company even past retirement age. On the day of the verdict, my father wouldn't even look at me. My mother cried and said, "Why did you betray him? You ruined your father's life." And Kevin spat, "So you chose justice over family. Do you even know what he's been through?" Since then, I had no contact with them. No Christmas cards, no birthday calls. Only Hillary remained in my life. I heard that my father continued working long after retirement age. In the community, he was considered a respected figure and was well liked. As for me, I quietly worked in my office at Cambridge, guiding students and immersing myself in legal research. I tried not to think about my family, but I could never truly forget. On the day of the party, I chose my outfit carefully. A navy suit, white blouse, and a string of pearls. Elegant, composed without drawing too much attention. I looked at myself in the mirror and took a deep breath. I was already thinking ahead how I would survive the day. When I arrived at the hotel, the venue was already bustling. The mayor, city council members, local business owners, people had gathered to celebrate my father's long career. I avoided the reception table and quietly headed to the back of the room. I didn't have the courage to give my name. I wanted to stay invisible, like an uninvited guest. That's when Kevin spotted me. He had been chatting with some friends, but his face went pale the moment he saw me. "Tracy?" He walked over, disbelief written all over his face. "What are you doing here?" It had been 15 years since I last saw my brother, and he had grown into a completely different man. I had heard from Aunt Hillary that Kevin was now working as a doctor. "Kevin," I said quietly. Just then, our mother appeared behind him. The moment she saw me, she froze. The glass in her hand trembled. "Tracy," her voice quivered. "Why? Who?" People around us were beginning to notice the tension. I could hear whispers. "Who is she? Mr. Gale's daughter? I haven't seen her in years." Panicked, my mother grabbed my arm. "We can't talk here. Come this way." She and Kevin led me to a quieter corner of the venue. A few people watched us, but thankfully, it seemed my father still hadn't noticed I was there. "Who invited you?" My mother asked in a hushed voice, filled with confusion and a trace of anger. "Aunt Hillary," I replied. Kevin let out a sharp sigh. "Of course. Aunt Hillary always has to meddle." "Kevin." My mother cut him off, then turned back to me. "Tracy, your father doesn't know you're here. If he sees you, it'll be a disaster, right?" I said with a wry smile. "So I'm still the unwanted guest." Her expression twisted with unease. 15 years had carved deep lines into her once beautiful face. I could still see the woman I remembered, but now she looked tired, worn down by time. "Tracy, please, I'm begging you. Leave before your father sees you. Today is important." I was speechless. After 15 years, the first thing my mother said to me was, "Leave." At that moment, Aunt Hillary appeared. "Tracy?" I turned to find her standing there, concern etched into her face. "Aunt Hillary." "You really came," she said, taking my hand gently. "But..." She glanced at my mother and brother's tense expressions and quickly understood what was happening. "Hilary, why did you bring Tracy here?" My mother asked in a low voice. "You know what Thomas would." "That's exactly why." Hilary cut her off. "It's been 15 years. How much longer are we going to live like this?" Then she turned to me and said firmly, "Tracy, your father is stubborn. But you have every right to be here. This is your family's gathering, too." My mother and brother looked thrown off. To them, I was no longer family. But Hilary didn't see it that way. And I knew if my father saw me, he would most likely kick me out on the spot. I was an uninvited guest, trying not to breathe too deeply. Still, a part of me was glad to see my family again, even if they didn't welcome me. And then, "What's all this commotion?" We turned. Standing there was my father. His expression froze the moment his eyes met mine. "Tracy." His voice was low, tight with suppressed anger. "Why are you here?" "Thomas." Hilary stepped forward. I invited her. "Tracy is your daughter." "Daughter?" He scoffed bitterly. "I have no daughter. That person betrayed this family." I gasped. The first words I heard from my father in 15 years were as cold and merciless as a blade. "Dad," I said, my voice trembling. "Don't say another word. You have no reason to be here." My father raised a hand, silencing me. All eyes in the room turned toward us. I could hear the murmurs growing. A wave of shame and sorrow pressed down on my chest, nearly suffocating me. "Thomas, that's no way to speak to her," Aunt Hilary protested. "Hilary, stay out of this," my father snapped. "She is not family." I turned to leave. I couldn't bear to stay any longer. But then, my father said something I didn't expect. "Fine. Since you're here, at least stay for my speech later. It will be a fitting lesson in humiliation." I looked at him, startled. I had thought he would throw me out immediately. But instead, he intended to let me stay if only to shame me publicly. His eyes held nothing but contempt. Without another word, he turned away and resumed chatting with other guests, as though I didn't exist. I was confused. I had expected anger, confrontation. But this cold indifference, this calculated dismissal, unsettled me more than shouting ever could. "Are you okay?" Aunt Hilary whispered, her voice gentle. "I think so, but why didn't he make me leave?" A sinking feeling spread through my chest. He's planning something. He won't just let it go. Soon my father stepped up to the microphone. It was time for his speech. "Thank you all for coming today." His voice filled the hall with ease and authority. He spoke about his 42 years of service, the struggles and achievements, and gave thanks to his colleagues and family who had supported him through it all. When he said the word family, I thought I saw him glance at me, but he quickly looked away. "I'm especially proud of my son, Kevin, who works as a doctor in our community and has helped so many patients. And..." He clearly looked straight at me. My heart began to race. Was he about to acknowledge me? I sat up straighter and waited for my father to speak. "And today we are joined by the disgrace of our family." A wave of whispers spread through the room. I felt dozens of eyes shift toward me. Blood drained from my face. There is someone among us who has stained the Morrison family name. That person is Tracy. She claims to be my daughter, but she is nothing of the sort. She is a failure, a shameful mistake. I could barely stay on my feet. His words struck like knives. Failure. The word rang in my ears, over and over again. This person is a disgrace to our family. She betrayed us and ruined her father's life. I'm deeply sorry that we must carry someone like her among us. The room was silent. I could feel their stares: pity, disgust, curiosity. I stood there, trapped in the storm of judgment. This was how my father truly felt. He seemed indifferent at first, but maybe that was all part of his plan. And now, he had humiliated me in front of them all. He continued his speech as if nothing had happened, as if I had already been erased. And slowly, the crowd's attention shifted away from me, drawn back to his polished words. I turned, quietly making my way toward the exit. There was no reason to stay any longer. His words had made it clear our relationship was beyond repair. But just before I reached the doors, someone called out to me. It was Frank Owen, the president of my father's company. He had known me since I was a child and had always treated me kindly. "Tracy, do you have a moment?" I nodded softly. He led me to a quiet corner of the hall. "I listened to what your father said." He chose his words carefully. "But I know the truth about you. Maybe your father doesn't, but I do." I frowned, confused. What was he talking about? "You're a professor at Harvard, aren't you? Constitutional law." I stared at him, stunned. How did he know that? "My son's in law school. He talks about you a lot. You're well-known, Professor T. Gale." I recognized the name and asked him to show me a picture. I knew immediately. I couldn't say a word. I never imagined there was someone in this small town who truly knew who I was. "Why don't you tell the truth right now?" Frank gently grasped my arm as he spoke. "Your father deserves to know who you really are. There's no reason to wait until tomorrow." I hesitated. "But, Tracy, you've suffered enough for 15 years. You don't need to carry this misunderstanding any longer." His words gave me the push I needed, and I took a deep breath. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. I had been rejected by my father, abandoned by my family. But that didn't mean I had to deny my own worth. I had worked relentlessly for the last 15 years. I turned back to the hall. My father stood surrounded by people, still smiling, still basking in admiration. I gathered all my courage and began to walk toward him. "Dad." My voice echoed through the hall. His smile faded. The conversations around us came to a halt. "You're still here? I thought you had left," he said coldly. "You spoke about me," I said, my voice trembling. "You called me a failure." "That's right. You're the disgrace of this family," he said without hesitation. The crowd murmured again. People began to gather around us. Frank stepped forward, standing beside me. "Thomas," he said, calmly but firmly. "You truly don't know who your daughter is, do you?" "What are you talking about, Frank?" My father scowled. Your daughter is a professor at Harvard University. She's a nationally recognized expert in constitutional law. A stunned silence fell over the hall. My father's face turned pale. My mother let out a faint gasp. That's ridiculous, my father muttered. There's no way this child is a professor at Harvard. You must be mistaken. I'm not mistaken, Frank said, turning to me. Tracy, would you show him? I reached into my handbag and pulled out my business card. Printed clearly on it. Dr. Tracy Gale, Professor of Constitutional Law, Harvard University. I handed it to my father. His hand shook as he took it. This must be fake, he said. But his voice had lost its conviction. I took out my phone and opened the Harvard University website. My faculty profile was displayed: photo, biography, and credentials. Do you still not believe me? I asked quietly. I teach constitutional law at Harvard. My research is used in law schools across the country. Still, my father shook his head stubbornly. This is a fake, he insisted. Anyone can make a fake website. Anyone can print a business card. More murmurs from the crowd. Confusion and discomfort spread among the guests. Frank stepped forward again. Thomas, what are you saying? Do you really believe this is fake? Of course it is. My father raised his voice. There's no way she could be a Harvard professor. I don't know what kind of trick you're trying to pull here, but I won't be fooled. Guests exchanged uncertain glances. They were clearly unsettled by the scene unfolding. Frank didn't flinch. Thomas, the only reason you can't accept this is because you don't want to. But this is the truth. Your daughter is a Harvard professor. Shut up, my father roared. Don't you dare lie to me. Then, from the back of the room, a young man stepped forward. It was Frank's son. Dad, let me speak, he said. She is my professor. There's no mistake. My father's face drained of all color. I looked at him and spoke calmly. Why is it so hard for you to accept that I've succeeded? He had no words. But I could see it in his eyes, a storm of emotions swirling beneath the surface. With a trembling voice, my father said, That can't be. I took a step forward. You call the evidence fake. Are you afraid of the truth? His face contorted. If you've really become someone so accomplished. If so, then what? Then it means I was wrong. It means that I made a mistake when I abandoned you during that trial. The room fell into even deeper silence. His confession laid bare the truth he had hidden even from himself. 15 years ago, when you testified, I cared only about protecting my own position. I didn't want to believe you were doing the right thing, because if I did... His voice cracked. Then I'd have to admit I was the kind of father who threw his daughter away to save himself. So I convinced myself you were wrong. That you were a failure. That way, I could keep pretending I was the victim. My mother gasped softly. Kevin stood frozen, disbelief written across his face. If I admit you're a professor at Harvard, that you've succeeded, then what does that make me? A foolish father who tried to destroy his daughter's future. I listened quietly. At last my father was admitting the truth that had long been buried in his heart. I wanted you to fail. If your life turned out miserable, then I could say I was right. That I had made the correct decision. That my selfishness was justified. Frank spoke, his tone grave. Thomas, you were afraid of her success. That's right. I was afraid. Because if Tracy succeeded, then all of my ugliness would be exposed. So I wanted her to fail. He looked up at me. When I called you a failure, it wasn't because I believed you were. It's because I needed you to escape my own guilt. And then he collapsed into a chair as if his legs could no longer support him. What have I done? As the truth finally sank in, the crowd began to grasp the gravity of what had just happened. My mother rushed over from across the room. Tracy, is it really true? You're a professor at Harvard? Yes, Mom, I said quietly. Kevin stepped forward, too. Tracy, we didn't know. We honestly didn't know. You didn't try to know, I replied, looking him straight in the eyes. For 15 years, you all acted like I didn't exist. You didn't care what I was doing. You never even asked. Frank turned to them and said, Everyone, Tracy is one of the leading constitutional scholars in the country. Her work has influenced major legal rulings. You didn't know it, but she's been doing incredible things. Finally, my father looked up. Tracy, I'm sorry, truly. Do you think a simple apology is enough? I stood up slowly. For 15 years, I was invisible to this family. Do you have any idea how painful that was? My mother took a step toward me, but I raised my hand to stop her. You can't expect me to forgive everything right now. I need time. Frank spoke gently. Tracy, I understand how you feel, but families make mistakes. What matters is what they learn from them. I took a deep breath. A heavy silence filled the room. No one had words. Then I said softly, Dad, I didn't live my life just to earn your approval. But at the very least you need to know the truth. I am not a failure. And with that, I turned and walked out. The night air brushed my cheeks as I stepped outside. There was a sense of release but also a deep sadness. I didn't know yet if things with my family would ever be repaired. A week had passed since I returned to Cambridge. Every day I received emails and calls from my family. At first I ignored them, but over time I noticed the tone of their messages began to change. The first apology came from my father. Tracy, I'm truly sorry for what happened the other day. For years I made you out to be the villain just to protect myself. I didn't even know how much you had accomplished, and I hurt you based on my own assumptions. I want to apologize from the bottom of my heart. Then my mother reached out. Tracy, this is Mom. I had no idea you were a professor at Harvard. We never even tried to find out what your life had become. Now I finally understand how much pain you must have carried all these years. I'm so sorry. Even Kevin wrote to me a rare thing. Tracy, I've treated many patients as a doctor, but I never once tried to understand my own family. You did the right thing, but we blamed you. I couldn't see your courage for what it was. I'm sorry. Still, I didn't reply right away. I couldn't tell if their apologies came from genuine regret or if they were just reacting to the shock of discovering my success. A week later, I wrote a short reply. I've received your apologies. I haven't been holding on to resentment for these past 15 years. But I can't return to how things used to be overnight. I'd like us to take time to consider whether we can build a new kind of relationship. For now, I need some distance. Tracy. After sending the message, communication from my family temporarily stopped. I felt a sense of relief and, unexpectedly, a quiet loneliness. About a month later, Aunt Hillary called. "Tracy, how have you been?" "I'm well, Aunt Hillary. Thanks for checking in. I actually wanted to talk to you about your family." Her voice was careful. "Your father, mother, and Kevin, they've all started going to counseling." I was stunned. Counseling? Yes. After that night, they had a long talk. They finally realized how deeply they had hurt you. They want to change, and they've decided to seek professional help. Aunt Hillary, is that really true? It is. The counselor told them how painful it must have been for you to be denied by your own family for so many years. Thomas cries at every session, I heard. A wave of mixed emotions rose in my chest. I could hardly imagine my father in tears. "But they're not asking you to forgive them right away," she added. "They just want to reconnect, on your terms. If you're willing, maybe you could start with small steps." After hanging up, I spent a long time thinking. If they were truly trying to change, maybe I could meet them halfway, at least try. 2 months later, I sent my mother a short email. "Mom, I heard you're going to counseling. I think that's a good step. I'm still working through my own feelings, so please give me more time. Tracy." Her reply came the next day. "Thank you for writing, Tracy. We won't rush you. We truly want to change. I hope that someday we can become a real family again." After that, we began exchanging short messages about once a month. My father sent updates about his work. My mother shared bits of daily life. Kevin wrote about his experiences as a doctor. The content remained somewhat surface level, but there was no more hostility or coldness. I could tell they were genuinely trying. 2 months later, I made my first phone call to the family. My mother picked up. "Tracy." Her voice lit up with joy. "How are you, Mom?" "I'm doing well. Counseling has helped me see things more clearly, how wrong we were to treat you the way we did." We talked for nearly an hour. She told me about what they had been learning in therapy, and how much my father and Kevin had come to reflect on their actions. "I hope we can all sit down and talk properly sometime," I said. "Really?" Her voice trembled. "Do you mean you'll forgive us?" "Not completely yet, but I'd like to try rebuilding trust, little by little." 6 months later, I made an important decision. While continuing my work at the university, I launched a new project, a support program for students from underprivileged backgrounds. It was a program designed to offer scholarships and mentorship to students who aspired to attend law school but had been forced to give up their dreams due to financial hardship. When I discussed the idea with Professor Susan, one of my colleagues, her eyes lit up. "That's incredible. But why this, all of a sudden?" I paused before answering. because I know what it feels like to be misunderstood, to feel completely alone. And I want to support kids who are in that same place. Your story is becoming someone else's strength. Through this project, I met many young people. Some were carrying pain from families that couldn't, or wouldn't, understand them. I taught them that their worth isn't defined by how others see them. And now, I continue to reflect on my own family. I still can't fully forgive them, but I can acknowledge their effort to change. What kind of relationship we'll have in the future, I still don't know. But I no longer feel hatred or bitterness. Sometimes time does heal. And with that in mind, I continue to face each day in my office, working with my students. Claire, I'm sorry, but I've decided to give your seat to Emily. It'll be more fun with her, and she said she wants to make memories with us before getting married. You understand, don't you? My hands trembled. I read the message over and over again, but the words never changed. Emily had said she was too busy with wedding preparations. So why was she suddenly able to go to Hawaii? And the words "more fun with her" pierced my heart. That morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. It was my parents' 30th anniversary. The departure day of the Hawaii trip I had been planning for 3 months. As I got out of bed in my penthouse house, I thought today would finally be the day I deepened our family bond. My consulting firm was thriving, and my clients had great trust in me. It was finally time to give back to my parents. While taking a shower, I mentally reviewed the travel details. 3 first-class tickets, 2 ocean view suites at a 5-star resort on Oahu, spa reservations, a sunset dinner cruise, and a Pearl Harbor tour. Total cost, $12,000. It was a portion of my company's quarterly profits, but I considered it a small price to pay for my family's happiness. My sister Emily had recently quit her job, saying she was going to marry Logan. However, because she was busy with the wedding, this trip was planned just for my parents and me. I was looking forward to spending time alone with them for the first time in ages. While eating breakfast, I checked a message from my mother, Patricia. I'm so excited for today. Your dad is thrilled too. It'll be a great chance to look back on 30 years of marriage. I smiled. If my parents were this happy, then all the preparations had been worth it. I considered calling Emily, but I figured she'd be busy with the wedding. In fact, when I called her 2 weeks ago, she said, "I have back-to-back meetings with the venue. Hawaii is just not possible." That's why I only invited my parents this time. I had planned to give her a honeymoon trip as a gift after the wedding. When I arrived at the airport departure lobby, no one was there. It was an hour before boarding, but we had agreed to meet early. I checked my phone, no calls, no messages. Even the family group chat was eerily quiet. A bad feeling crept into my chest. 30 minutes passed. I kept scanning the crowd, clutching my boarding pass, searching for my parents. Other passengers arrived one after another and began preparing for boarding. I felt like I was the only one being left behind. Then my phone rang. The message was from my mother. She had given my seat to Emily, saying it would be more fun with her. I immediately rushed to the airline counter. When I explained the situation to the staff, they confirmed a reservation change. At 11 p.m., the night before, under Patricia's name, my seat had been canceled, and a new passenger named Emily Bennett was added. "Do you have any record of my consent to this change?" I asked the staff. "Yes. Since the tickets were originally booked under Patricia's name, the change was made accordingly," they replied. I was stunned. It was true my mother had said she would handle the airline reservations, and I had trusted her. I sank into a seat at the boarding gate. Around me, families were cheerfully getting ready for departure. As children's laughter echoed through the terminal, I sat alone. The words "I gave your seat to Emily, and she's more fun" kept replaying in my mind. I called Patricia, but the call didn't go through. It was the same with my father, Douglas. Emily's phone was turned off. They were probably already on another flight to Hawaii. On a trip I paid for without me. A trip I spent 3 months planning, stolen from me overnight. An announcement came over the intercom saying boarding had begun. I stood up and gazed out the window. Seat A, first class. Emily was probably sitting in the seat that was supposed to be mine, chatting happily with my parents, sipping complimentary premium champagne. While drinking coffee alone at the airport bar, I reflected on my relationship with my family. I had believed Emily when she said she was too busy with wedding preparations, so I had asked her to sit this trip out. In the end, was that all a lie? Or had the allure of a Hawaii vacation simply outweighed the need to plan a wedding? Either way, my feelings had been completely disregarded. Emily was more fun, so they took her instead of me. As if I were a backup option. I opened the message from my mother again. "I gave your seat to Emily. It'll be more fun with her." After replying, "Understood," I stood up. As I walked toward the parking lot, I began forming a plan in my head. My family would enjoy Hawaii without me. But when they returned, the world waiting for them would be entirely different. In the parking lot, I started the car and took a deep breath. $12,000. 3 months of preparation. My gratitude toward my parents. All of it had become meaningless in an instant. But instead of anger, a cold, icy clarity took hold of me. I was certain this day would mark a turning point in my life. If things had gone as planned, this would have been the second morning of the Hawaii trip. Instead, I was in my downtown office, sipping my morning coffee and checking emails. 3 urgent requests from clients, a presentation to finalize for next week, and 1 notification from the credit card company. As I opened the final notification, my blood froze. An unusual high-value transaction has been detected. Honolulu, Hawaii, resort spa, $2,500. Approval required. I stared at the screen. A spa charge had been billed to my credit card. But I was in New York. It was my family who was in Hawaii, using my card without my permission. The family card had been issued as part of the support I provided after finding success in my business. I had set a monthly limit and given it to them for routine purchases or emergencies. But $2,500 at a spa was far beyond ordinary spending. Especially when I wasn't even on the trip. I immediately logged into the bank's online system. When I checked the transaction history from the past 48 hours, an even more shocking truth was revealed. Restaurant bill, $500. Gift shop, $500. Marine activities, $1,500. All charged to my card. all expenses I had no knowledge of. I sank deep into my chair. Not only had my family excluded me from the trip, they were living it up on my dime. As if they thought I'd gladly pay for it. Just then, a message arrived on my phone. It was from Emily. "Big sis, Hawaii is amazing. Mom and I go to the spa every day. Don't worry about the money, we'll definitely pay you back. Mom says you'll understand. It's for the family, after all." My hands shook with anger. Pay me back? Emily had quit her job and was unemployed. How exactly was she planning to repay me? Then another message came from my mother. "Claire, we've been using your card. Emily may be spending a little extravagantly, but she really needed this trip. It's such an important time before her wedding, and since you're successful, I know you'll understand. We're family." My mother had known they were splurging on my credit card, and she had allowed it. We're family. Those words stabbed me straight through the heart. Because we're family, it's okay to use my card for a trip I wasn't invited on? Because we're family, it's okay to exclude me? Because we're family, my feelings don't matter? At that moment, my phone rang again. This time it was Emily calling. "Hey big sis, hope you're doing well. Hawaii is the best. But I have a favor to ask. I suddenly need some cash. I want to buy a bunch of souvenirs and book a marine activity for tomorrow, but they only take cash. Could you send me about $1,000 to my bank account?" I was stunned. They had shut me out of the trip, and now they were still asking for my money, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Emily, aren't you all enjoying the trip without me? Why should I send you money?" "Because we're family. Don't be so stingy. You're rich now, sis. Besides, this is Mom and Dad's anniversary trip. Making memories costs money." Emily went on without a hint of guilt. "Spending time with just Mom and Dad is so much fun. Oh, and we booked a French restaurant for dinner. It's about $150 per person. Can we use your card? Could you raise the limit for us?" Something inside me snapped. They had excluded me from the trip, and yet they still felt entitled to my money. As if I were some sort of automatic payment machine. And the word "spending time with just Mom and Dad is so much fun" cut me to the core. I was supposed to be there. I called the credit card company. "Please cancel the family card immediately. I suspect unauthorized use." The customer service representative responded promptly. "Understood. The family card will be suspended right away." Next, I called the resort concierge. I needed to cancel every service booked under my name. "We'll check all bookings under Ms. Bennett. That includes spa treatments, dinner cruises, and room service. Would you like all of them canceled?" "Yes, and from this point forward, do not accept any bookings under my name. I am currently in New York, not in Hawaii." The concierge sounded a little confused. "But Ms. Bennett, your group is currently staying at the resort. They modified my bookings without permission and are misusing my credit card. I recommend reporting this to your security team." After hanging up, I stared out the window and reflected on the past. Since I found success with my consulting firm, supporting my family had become expected. And 5 years ago, I gave them the biggest gift of all. I bought a house for my parents for $650,000. A 3-bedroom, two-bathroom home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. There was even a space in the garden where my mother could plant her beloved roses. "Claire, thank you so much. I can't believe you gave us such a beautiful home. You're the best daughter ever." Even my father, usually stoic, had shown emotion. "My daughter, I will never forget this for as long as I live. You are the pride of this family." Were those words a lie? The pride of the family? A debt never to be forgotten? Then I made a call. "This is the Nathan Carter Law Office." "Hello, this is Claire Bennett. I'd like to discuss selling a property." "Of course. Which property is it?" "It's a house under my name. My family currently lives there, but I'm considering selling it." I could hear the sound of typing on the other end. "Understood. Would you be available tomorrow morning for a more detailed consultation?" "Yes. I want to proceed as soon as possible." "Certainly. How about 10 a.m. tomorrow?" After hanging up, I went home. I took out a stack of legal documents. The house purchase agreement, the deed, all were in my name. There was no legal issue. I had bought the property. I owned it. I was simply selling what was rightfully mine. The next morning, I was at Nathan Carter's office reviewing the sale details. "This area is expected to be rezoned for commercial development next year," Nathan explained. "We anticipate a 20% increase in market value." I nodded. "How long would the sale take?" "If priced appropriately, about 2 to 3 weeks. I believe we can find multiple cash buyers." "Am I obligated to notify my family in advance?" Nathan shook his head. "Legally, no. You are the sole owner of the property. However, a 30-day notice for vacating the premises is standard." I signed the documents. "Begin the process today. Move forward as quickly as possible." The next morning, I got a frantic call from Emily. "Claire, there's been some kind of mistake. My card was declined at the restaurant. It was so humiliating. Please call them and fix this." I replied calmly, "It's not a mistake. I canceled the card." "What? But we're family. This is such an important trip." "If we're family, then why didn't you ask if I wanted to come? If we're family, why did you exclude me from the trip?" Emily was silent. I heard Patricia's voice in the background. "What's going on? Why can't we use the card?" "That's your problem now," I said. "I'm not your wallet anymore." After ending the call, I took a deep breath. For the first time, I set a boundary for myself. For the first time, I said no. And strangely, I didn't feel any guilt. If anything, I felt a sense of liberation. My relationship with my family had completely changed tonight. I was no longer the one being used. And starting tomorrow, my life would belong to me and only me. The day before my family was due to return from Hawaii, I completed the final preparations. A phone call from Michael, the real estate agent, confirmed that everything was proceeding smoothly. "Claire, great news. A buyer has made a cash offer. Thanks to the area's development plans, things are moving even faster than expected." The house I had bought for my parents 5 years ago had cost $650,000. But this time, the sale price was $780,000. The market value had risen, and the timing was perfect in both speed and price. "When can I sign the contract?" I asked. "We'll have a signing ceremony tomorrow at 10 a.m. with a notary present. The ownership transfer will be completed by 2 p.m. at 9 a.m. The next morning, I arrived at the notary's office. The buyer was a local developer who said they planned to begin construction as early as next month. Just as I was finishing the signing, my phone rang. It was a call from my father. "Claire, we just got home and there's some mail here. It says eviction notice. Says we have to vacate the house within 30 days. Do you know anything about this?" I checked the time. 10:15 a.m. It looked like they had returned earlier than scheduled. "Dad, there's something I need to talk to you about. I'll meet you at the house." "What is this about? What's going on?" "I'll explain everything in person. Let's meet in an hour." At 11:30 a.m., I parked my car in front of the house. When I arrived, all three of them were waiting, still holding their suitcases, confused, with the letter in hand. "Welcome back. How was Hawaii? I'm sure the three of you had a great time." Emily was the first to speak. "Big sis, you're finally here. What is this letter? Is there some kind of problem?" "There's no problem. It's just that this house no longer belongs to us." My mother stepped forward. "What are you talking about? Of course this is our house. We live here." I pulled out a copy of the sale agreement. "Please take a look at this. The ownership transfer was completed yesterday at 2 p.m. This house now belongs to the new owners." All three were speechless. My father took the papers and began reading through them. "Is this real?" His voice trembled. "Yes, it's completely legal. The house was in my name, so I had the right to sell it." Emily's eyes welled up with tears. "But what about our belongings? I'm getting ready for the wedding." "The new owners will begin renovations next month, so you'll need to move everything out within 30 days. Until then, you can still enter the house. As for the wedding preparations, you'll need to make them somewhere else." My mother's face turned red. "This is cruel. We're family. Why would you do something like this? Over a small misunderstanding in Hawaii?" "A small misunderstanding?" I answered calmly. "You excluded me from the trip and used my credit card without permission. And you lied about being busy with wedding preparations just to take my seat?" Emily rushed to explain. "I really was busy with wedding planning. But suddenly I had some free time. And time with our parents is important too." "So time with me wasn't important? I planned and paid for the trip, only to be excluded, and you had a great time as a trio? Is that how you show appreciation?" I pulled a bank statement from my handbag. "This is a record of my financial support over the past year. I paid for home maintenance, property taxes, utilities, about $15,000 annually." I showed them the statement. "I've supported this family with about $50,000 over the past 5 years. And instead of being thanked, I was excluded because I wasn't fun." My father finally spoke. "Claire, it's true we may have relied on you too much. But we're family. We should be able to work this out by talking." He continued. "We love you. You're our successful daughter, and we're proud of you. But Emily is about to get married, and we thought this trip would be our last time together as a family. Love is using my success. Love is excluding me from the trip. Love? And why wasn't I included in that last family time with Emily? Emily spoke in a trembling voice. Big sis, I never meant to hurt you. I cut her off. Mom made it very clear. She said, Emily is more fun. At that moment, the new owner's car pulled up. A young couple stepped out and greeted me. Ms. Bennett, thank you again. We'd like to take a look inside to begin our renovation planning. I turned and looked at my family. Please have everything moved out within 30 days. After that, this will no longer be your home, it will be someone else's property. My family stood frozen in shock. After living rent-free for 5 years and receiving financial support, they were finally forced to face reality. Emily would now have to restart her wedding preparations in a new home. As I walked back to my car, I felt no regret. Instead, I felt light, as if a burden I had carried for years had finally lifted. I could hear the sound of a new life beginning. 2 weeks had passed since my final conversation with my family. They had tried to contact me multiple times, but I ignored every message. While drinking my morning coffee in my new apartment's living room, I read a new message on my phone. It was from Emily. Big sis, I really need to talk. Can we meet today? Please. It was her 5th message. But this time, something felt different. It no longer had that demanding tone. It sounded like a plea. At 2 p.m., I was waiting in a cafe downtown. When Emily arrived, I was surprised by how much she had changed. The flashy makeup was gone, and her hair was simply tied back. She wore inexpensive fast fashion, looking like a completely different person. Big sis, she said as she sat down. Thank you for meeting with me. I said nothing and just looked at her. The truth is, Logan and I broke up. Her eyes filled with tears. No, actually, he dumped me. I raised an eyebrow. What happened? Everything fell apart, she said, voice trembling. After you canceled the credit card, we were really struggling in Hawaii. But that wasn't the biggest problem. What do you mean? The wedding preparations. That was actually a lie. Emily held her coffee cup with shaking hands. My relationship with Logan had already started to fall apart before the trip. I was stunned. What do you mean by that? To be honest, I was seeing other people. A few. Logan wasn't enough for me, and I went on casual dates with other guys. But just before the Hawaii trip, he found out. Her voice wavered. Logan was furious. We had a huge fight the day before heading to the airport, and he said, "It's over," then walked out. But I was too proud to admit it, so I snapped back, "Fine, I'll go to Hawaii alone." That's when I lied and said I suddenly had free time and took your seat. I was speechless. While I was in Hawaii, I told Mom and Dad that Logan had an urgent matter and couldn't help with the wedding plans. But in reality, he was going through my social media and messages while I was away, collecting evidence of my cheating. He even contacted my friends to confirm I'd been seeing other men. Emily wiped her tears. Right after we got back from Hawaii, while we were arguing with you about the card, Logan sent me a long message. It had the names of all the guys I cheated with, photos of us on dates, screenshots of messages, everything organized. And at the end he wrote, You're the worst woman I've ever known. Don't ever contact me again." I said nothing. It was a truth uglier and more complicated than I had expected. "Claire, I was really stupid. The whole thing about getting married, quitting my job, it was all selfish. And I depended on your money without showing any gratitude or respect. I was a terrible sister." Emily sniffled. "And now we're really struggling. Dad, Mom, and I are all living together in a tiny one-bedroom apartment. The rent is only $800, but even that's hard to cover." I was surprised. "All three of you?" "Yes. After you sold the house, we had nowhere to go. Dad can't afford his medication, and Mom, even though she's nearly 70, started working part-time at a convenience store. I'm working at a fast food place too, but it's nowhere near enough to support the three of us." Emily's voice trembled. "Every night, Dad says, 'Let's go apologize to Claire.' And Mom says, 'She's family, she'll forgive us.' But I was too scared to reach out." I remained silent for a long time. It was likely true that they were struggling. But it was the result of the choices they made themselves. "Emily, I accept your apology, but our relationship will never return to what it was." "What do you mean?" "I'm no longer the person who solves your problems. You're 25 years old. Please tell Dad and Mom they need to take responsibility for their own lives." Tears filled Emily's eyes. "But we're family. We're blood. Dad can't even pay for his medicine. Mom's on her feet all day, even with her bad knees. Please, just help us a little." I quietly shook my head. Blood doesn't guarantee love. It doesn't guarantee respect. I was used by all of you for years. That wasn't family love. I stood up. "Emily, you can learn from this experience. Learn to be independent. Learn not to rely on others. And learn not to exploit people. Claire, I'll change. I swear I'll really change. Just give me one more chance." "You've already had more than one chance. It's over." As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a strange peace. I felt no anger. No hatred. Only the relief that a long chapter had finally closed. That night, when I returned to my apartment, there were 3 messages on my voicemail. All from my father. "Claire, it's your father. Emily told me everything. We're really in trouble. I'm swallowing my pride to ask you. Please give us one more chance as family." Second message, my daughter. "I can't afford my medication. I can't even go to the doctor. I'm proud of everything you've achieved. That's why I'm asking for help." Third message, "Claire, this is the last time. We hurt you, but we're family. Blood is thicker than water. Please forgive us." I deleted the messages. The next day, I received a long letter from my mother. "To my beloved daughter. We were wrong. Now we finally understand how hard you worked for us. Your father has no medication, my knees are in pain, and we're ashamed of how much we relied on you. Please, just one more time, accept us as family." When I finished reading the letter, I threw it in the trash. Even after that, they continued to reach out 2 or 3 times a week. Calls, emails, sometimes even showing up at my office. But I never responded. I gave security their names and instructed them not to let any of them in. 3 months later, I received one final message from Emily. Big sis, I won't contact you again? We'll try to survive on our own somehow. But I'm truly sorry. I hope you find happiness. I deleted that message too. And I felt no guilt. It was true that they were struggling, but I was no longer their safety net. They needed to learn, for the first time, what it meant to be truly independent. That night, I had dinner on the balcony of my apartment. No phone notifications. No emergency calls from my family. Just time that belonged to me. The following week, I finalized my trip to Iceland. A solo 2-week journey to see the Northern Lights. It had been a dream since my student days, always postponed for family obligations. But this time was different. This time it was a trip paid for by me, scheduled by me, and meant only for me. The travel agent said, "A solo trip? That's very brave of you." "No," I replied with a smile. "This isn't bravery. This is freedom." On the way home that day, I caught a glimpse of myself in a shop window and stopped. Then I said aloud, "I'm no longer anyone's safety net. I'm not someone's plan B. I'm not anyone's bank. I am me, and for the first time that is enough." Then it began to rain. But my heart was clear. For the first time in 30 years, I truly belonged to myself. And that feeling was more satisfying than any success I had ever known. A new life had begun. For the first time, it was truly my own. Today is truly special. The only one who deserves to be celebrated is this daughter. #proud moment. #mother's love. The moment I saw my mother's Instagram post, it felt like someone had struck my chest with a blunt object. In the photo, my mother Diane was smiling ear to ear, shoulder to shoulder with my sister Hannah, who was dressed in a white gown, at what I immediately recognized as a familiar banquet hall. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Today was my wedding day. My family had told me they couldn't attend because my father wasn't feeling well. But now I saw that my mother and Hannah were hosting a lavish birthday party for her on the exact same day as my wedding, in a different venue, without saying a single word to me. And she had posted about it proudly on social media. "You've got to be kidding me." I smoothed the hem of my wedding dress gently. This day was supposed to be the most important day of my life. Working as a nurse, I had spent years saving money to support my father's treatment while planning this wedding between night shifts, enduring exhaustion and countless meetings. And finally, this day had arrived. But all it took was one Instagram post to cast a dark shadow over everything. After finishing the rehearsal and returning to the waiting room, my friend and colleague Mandy handed me her phone with a hesitant look. "I'm not sure if you should see this, but..." From the look on Mandy's face, I already felt a pit in my stomach. My fingers trembled as I took the phone and looked at the screen. That's when I saw it. What is this?" My lips quivered and my voice came out as a whisper. My wedding was meant to be a small, intimate gathering, just about 50 of our closest family and friends. Still, the preparations had taken months. I'd chosen the dress, the venue, all with my mother by my side. "Christina, you'll be the most beautiful bride." That's what she told me. And yet, what now? Now she was at that glamorous venue, proudly celebrating Hannah's birthday instead. I couldn't believe my eyes. The post already had over 100 comments. "What a lovely mother and daughter. Congratulations. Hannah looks absolutely stunning." The flood of cheerful comments only tightened the knot in my chest. I snatched my phone and accessed the post from my own account. More than anger, what welled up inside me was despair. "Enjoy it, since you don't know a thing." That's what I typed with trembling fingers. I hesitated for a moment before hitting send, but somehow, my thumb moved on its own. The comment appeared instantly, standing alone beneath a post that was racking up likes by the second. A single tear slid down my cheek. Why did it come to this? Mandy gently rubbed my back. There are so many people here who genuinely want to celebrate you. No matter what your family did, today you're standing here, about to promise forever to Wesley. All I could do was nod. But deep down, something broke and something else began to awaken. I was done living a life of sacrifice. Just before walking down the aisle, I stopped in front of a large mirror and locked eyes with the woman reflected back at me. My white dress, my tense face, everything stood out starkly under the soft lights. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "From now on, I will live for myself." At that moment, the chapel doors slowly opened, and radiant light poured in as if announcing the start of a new life. But when I looked toward the seats reserved for my family, they were completely empty. That vacant space said more than words ever could. Still, I didn't bow my head. At the end of the aisle stood Wesley, the one person who had always stood by me. No matter the past, no matter the pain, his presence had been my constant source of strength. With that feeling in my heart, I stepped forward slowly, purposefully. That aisle was more than a path, it was a bridge from my past to my future. The morning after the wedding, I hadn't been able to sleep much. Even as daylight filled the room, my heart remained restless. Thoughts swirled in my mind, heavy and unrelenting. The ceremony had gone off without a hitch, and Wesley had been as kind and steady as always. But I still couldn't forget that cold social media post, the empty family seats. They pierced deeper than I had expected, like thorns that wouldn't come out. I need to really think about the road ahead. The reflection in the mirror showed the fatigue clearly written on my face. And yet behind those tired eyes was something unwavering. I would no longer live sacrificing myself for someone else's approval. And in my heart, I made it final. To change my life, I already knew what I had to do first. Stop the loan payments I'd been making for the past 3 years. Ever since my father was diagnosed with cancer, I had been sending money to my mother's account each month to help cover the mortgage on our family home as part of my financial support. But now, I knew I had no reason to keep doing it. I walked into the bank that morning. It was still early, and the counter area was quiet. I took a seat across the glass partition. A young female teller approached me, her name tag reading Kelly. "Good morning. What can I help you with today? I'd like to cancel an automatic transfer. It's a recurring monthly payment toward my family's home loan account." "Certainly. May I have your customer number and an ID for verification?" While I handed over the documents, Kelly began tapping on her screen. Then her fingers paused. "I see here you've been sending $1,200 every month for about 3 years. That's 36 payments in total. The total amount is, yes, $43,200. "I'm aware." I cut in before she could finish. She looked slightly surprised but nodded. "Do you mind if I ask the reason for stopping it?" "Just for internal record keeping." I hesitated briefly, but the feelings I'd held back for so long rose to the surface naturally. I was doing it for my family. But lately, I've experienced something that completely disregarded that goodwill. I don't have a reason to continue anymore." Kelly nodded, her tone gentle. "I understand. We see that sometimes. Please don't forget to take care of your own well-being, too." She turned back to the screen and resumed typing. "I'll stop the payments starting today. No deductions will be made from next month onward. Would you like a printout of your payment history?" "Yes, please. I'd like to keep a record for myself." As I received the papers and stepped out of the bank, I let out a long, slow breath. It felt like a heavy chain had finally been broken. Thank you. The moment I stepped out of the bank, the early summer breeze felt just a little more comforting against my skin. That night, I sat across from Wesley at our small kitchen table. On the table was a single piece of paper, the payment history I had received from the bank. Wesley looked at it in silence. You really sent this much, all this time? Yeah. After my dad got sick, I thought I was helping the family by covering the mortgage. But after what they did to me on our wedding day, I just can't forgive that. It hurts more because they're family. You're right. What they did was terrible. No one would expect you to keep helping after that. I clasped my hands tightly in my lap. I'm a little scared. I don't know how my mom or the rest of them will react now that I've stopped. But I just couldn't keep going anymore. Wesley reached out and gently wrapped his hands around mine. You've done more than enough. Now it's time to live your own life. With those words, something broke loose inside me. I always felt like I had to be strong because I was the eldest daughter. But after what happened yesterday, I can't do it anymore. Wesley nodded deeply. You were hurt because you loved them, because you trusted them. But you don't have to keep enduring betrayal. You have me. I'll always be on your side. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I cried silently. Wesley said nothing, he just held me close until the tears stopped. When I finally lifted my head, I whispered, Thank you, Wesley. From now on, I want to make choices for my life. My voice was hoarse, but there was no hesitation in it. Wesley gave me a warm smile and held my hands again. That's how it should be. And I'll be here to support you every step of the way. My chest swelled with emotion. I nodded slowly, deeply. Up until now, I'd poured everything into meeting my family's expectations, sacrificing my time, my heart, even my future. But no more. I had finally made the decision to reclaim my own life. What had started as support eventually turned into a duty. But support should never be an obligation, it should be a choice. With the relief of having completed the process, I felt a sudden lightness in my heart. Like I had finally put down a burden I'd carried far too long. Still, a part of me feared how my parents might respond. But as the days passed, no call, no message came from them. The silence hung heavily in my chest. Then, one quiet weekend morning, a message popped up on my phone. It was from my aunt, Sandra. The message simply read, We'd love for you to come see the newly renovated cottage. That was it. It felt like an invitation to a family reunion, but something deep inside me stirred uneasily. I couldn't help but wonder if I went, would I once again be subjected to their stares? Would I be blamed all over again? I stared at the message for a long time, and for a moment I almost closed it and declined. At that moment, I didn't yet have the emotional strength to respond. But Wesley, who was quietly watching me from across the room, gently said, You don't have to go if it's too much. But if going helps you take even one step forward, maybe it's worth it. It might be your chance to say what you need to say. His words made me look at my phone again. Even though I was hesitant, I felt something deep inside me stir. A small, fragile courage to take that first step. I nodded slowly. I wasn't the same person I had been. The cottage was a white house on the outskirts of town. In the wide yard, my Aunt Sandra and her husband, along with cousins and other relatives, were gathered and chatting cheerfully. I came alone. Wesley couldn't make it due to work, but he had seen me off warmly saying, You'll be just fine. Christina. I'm so glad you came. My aunt hugged me tightly. This renovated cottage is absolutely beautiful. It feels like a brand new home, I said to my aunt. Thank you. It was a lot of work, but worth it. I wanted everyone to come see it. And, well, it's a good excuse to bring the whole family together again. My parents were there. So was my sister Hannah and her husband. My mother avoided eye contact with me. Hannah clung lightly to her husband's arm, laughing and chatting with our relatives as if nothing had happened. My father looked a little worn out, but he gave me a faint, tired smile. My chest tightened. None of them had come to my wedding. At lunch, everyone gathered in the middle of the yard. Aunt Sandra raised her glass. Thank you all for coming today. A lot has happened, but I'm so happy we could all be together again. Let's keep cherishing the bonds we share. Cheers. Cheers. The clinking of glasses echoed around us. As the meal progressed, conversation grew more relaxed. Then, someone casually brought up a familiar topic. Hannah, your party the other day was just beautiful. That dress looked amazing on you. Thank you. It really was like a dream, she replied with a radiant smile, her hand still gently holding her husband's arm. My mother beamed with pride. Watching them, something deep inside me that I had tried to bury began to rise. The absence of my family on my wedding day suddenly struck me all over again. Then Aunt Sandra, as if remembering something, said, "Come to think of it, Christina, you weren't at Hannah's party, were you? Is everything okay?" The atmosphere froze. All eyes turned to me. I couldn't respond immediately. I stared at my glass, trying to steady the storm of emotions inside. But I couldn't stay silent. I slowly looked up, took a deep breath, and spoke. I wasn't at Hannah's party because I wasn't told about it. That day was my wedding day. As murmurs spread through the room, I began to speak the truth I had carried in my heart all this time. I held my wedding on that same day. Not a single family member came. I was told it was because of my father's health. But in truth, Hannah's birthday party was happening at the same time. All of you were there. I found out about it from a post on social media. The murmurs grew louder. Hannah and my mother froze. That's not all. After my father was diagnosed, I spent the last 3 years helping with the mortgage on the family home. I supported them financially every month. And yet, I wasn't even told about the party, and it was scheduled on the same day as my wedding. How could I not feel abandoned, like I was cast aside by my own family? And on top of that, my mother posted, "Today is truly special. The only one who deserves to be celebrated is this daughter." A few aunts and uncles gasped audibly. All I ever wanted was a family that supported one another. But the truth is, I was the only one giving. I was the only one sacrificing, without ever being thanked. That was my reality. I fought to keep my voice from trembling. It took a lot of courage to say this in front of everyone today. But I'm done sacrificing my life. What I want now is a family where we treat each other as equals. That's all. Silence fell over the entire gathering. My mother's expression was tense. Hannah looked away. I clenched my fists to hold back the shaking. All I ever wanted was to be loved by my family. It hurts so much because I believed in you. At that moment, my father slowly stood up. "Christina, I'm sorry." His voice was raspy, but his eyes were sincere. "After I got sick, money got tight. Your mother was overwhelmed. We leaned on you too much. And I'm truly sorry about the wedding. We should have been there." I looked at my father. His apology shook something in me. But my mother still averted her eyes. "Mom, don't you have anything to say?" She bit her lip. "I just thought, you were doing fine, financially stable. You didn't seem to need us, and that makes it okay to ignore my wedding." She said nothing. Then my aunt quietly spoke. "Diane, you were wrong. Christina believed in you. She supported you, and what you did was a betrayal." The other relatives nodded. "You can't treat someone unfairly just because they're family. Christina, you've done more than enough. She's right. We lean too much on her strength, without even realizing it. For the first time, I saw tears well up in my mother's eyes. I'm sorry. I took you for granted. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. Part of me felt relieved to hear those words. But another part of me couldn't forgive her so easily. I won't be a sacrifice anymore. I want us to support each other as a family. My father nodded firmly. We will. I'll try to change too. My mother wiped her tears. I want to make things right. I truly am sorry. I took a deep breath. It felt like something tight in my chest had finally loosened, just a little. Thank you, but please don't place any more one-sided expectations on me. I'm going to live my own life. Applause broke out. Aunt Sandra pulled me into a hug. Well said, Christina. I smiled. Maybe this was what a real new beginning felt like. A week passed since the family reunion. My heart had started to settle, slowly. But I still hadn't replied to the short apology messages my mother had been sending now and then. Right now, I needed to prioritize my own feelings. One morning, after getting home from work, I collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. That's when my phone rang loudly. My screen lit up, Mom. My chest tightened, but I answered. Hello. Her panicked voice burst through the receiver. Christina. It's bad. A notice from the mortgage company just arrived. They're threatening foreclosure on the house. I was speechless. What? What do you mean, foreclosure? They said we've fallen behind on payments. If we don't catch up, we could lose the house. Wait, how did it come to this so suddenly? Her voice cracked, full of tears. Since you stopped sending the money, I haven't been able to keep up with the payments. But I just got the notice this morning, please. Just this once, can you cover it? I clenched the phone in my hand. Mom, that's not my responsibility anymore. We already talked about this. I made that decision to protect my own life. Please don't say that. You're the only one I can turn to now. No, stop. You can't keep putting this on me. I've already done more than enough. She broke into sobs on the other end. I'm begging you, just one more time. I exhaled deeply. My answer is no. You and Dad will have to find a way on your own. I ended the call with trembling fingers. Moments later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Hannah. I hesitated but picked it up. What? Her voice was much quieter than I expected. I'm sorry, Christina. I heard everything from Mom. I didn't realize how much I was being favored, how selfish I was. I'm so sorry. I said nothing. I didn't understand how much you gave up, how much you sacrificed. I'm sorry about how your wedding turned out. I really am. Her words pierced my heart. It was too late. And yet, a small part of me felt the weight lift slightly. Thank you for apologizing, Hannah. But I've made my choice. I won't keep sacrificing myself for this family. Please understand that. I do. I don't want to ruin your happiness. I hung up quietly. That night, I told Wesley everything. Sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, I poured out the whole story, my mother's phone call, my sister's apology, all of it. He listened quietly, seriously. By the time I was finished, tears had formed in my eyes. Wesley, what should I do? I feel so torn. Wesley gently took my hands in his. Christina, you've done more than anyone could have asked for. You've given so much. But now, it's time to take care of yourself and our future. I looked up at him. His eyes were steady and clear. But if the house really is foreclosed, I don't know if I can handle that. I understand. But this isn't your burden alone. It's a problem the whole family needs to face. You don't need to keep sacrificing yourself for them. His words made my tears spill over. Thank you, Wesley. I don't know what I'd do without you. I'm always on your side, no matter what." That night, for the first time in a long while, I slept a little more deeply. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but I was finally ready to face it. Since the day I refused my mother's plea for money and received my sister's apology, I had slowly begun to make peace with my heart. With Wesley's constant support, I was starting to turn my attention back to my life. Not long after, I received a phone call from Aunt Sandra. "Christina, do you have a moment to talk?" I nodded instinctively. She had stood by me ever since the family reunion. Diane and the others, they've started to change their way of thinking a little. A friend of mine recommended a great family therapist. I was wondering, would you consider joining them for a few sessions? I hesitated. Would it really make a difference for me to be there? It would. Not just for them, but for you too. More than anything, they need to hear your voice in a space where it will be taken seriously. I took a deep breath. If I stayed silent, nothing would ever change. This might be our last chance. Okay, I'll go. A few days later, we gathered in a family therapy room at the local community center. The therapist was Dr. Kevin Johnson, a calm, middle-aged man with a warm presence. "Thank you all for coming today. My hope is that this becomes a space where each of you can better understand one another." I sat on one side of the room. Across from me were my mother, my father, and Hannah. My mother looked tense. My father gave me a quiet, steady gaze, and Hannah sat with her hands clasped on her lap, eyes downcast. The session began. "Let's go around and each share what you're feeling right now." My father spoke first. "Christina, I'm truly sorry. After I got sick, our life became chaotic. We relied on you too much. But now I understand how heavy that must have been for you." I looked into his eyes. There was more sincerity in them than I'd seen before. My mother kept her gaze lowered, but after a moment, she lifted her head. "I leaned on you too much. I gave Hannah special treatment, that's true. But I just thought, since you were so capable, you'd be okay. I didn't realize what I was doing." I spoke quietly, but clearly. "Mom, Dad, I don't hate you, but I've been holding in my pain for a long time, covering Dad's medical bills, helping with the house loan, putting my own life on hold. But what happened on my wedding day, that broke me." Tears welled in my mother's eyes. "I regret not going to your wedding more than anything. I let pride get in the way. And as your mother, I should have never made you feel so abandoned." Fighting back tears of my own, I replied, "I'm done sacrificing myself for this family. But I do want to rebuild something with you. Something new. But only if we can be equals." Dr. Johnson nodded. "That's a very important feeling. How does everyone else take that in?" My father nodded firmly. "Thank you for saying that. I want us to be equals too. That's what family should be." My mother wiped her tears. "I want to change too. I don't want to rely on you so much anymore. I want to stand on my own feet." Next to her, Hannah finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Christina, I'm sorry too. I leaned on you without realizing it. I regret everything about your wedding. I want to do better. I want to take real responsibility as part of this family." Her words gently loosened something in my chest. Later in the session, we talked more deeply about our family dynamics. My mother acknowledged how she'd let Hannah become too dependent. My father promised to be more transparent about financial matters moving forward. Hannah vowed to keep working toward her independence. At the end, Dr. Johnson said, "Rebuilding a family takes time. But having these honest conversations, that's the first and most important step." I held on to those words. As we continued with more sessions, I saw my mother begin to change. Rather than relying on me, she started trying to solve things herself. One day, she said to me, I'm doing my best to manage without your help. We've worked something out with relatives, and the mortgage payments are under control. I won't ask anything more of you, and I'll repay everything you've given us. It might take time, but I promise I will. I'm truly grateful, Christina. Her words filled my chest with warmth. I'm really glad to hear that, and there's no rush on the repayments. What matters most to me is that I still want to be part of this family, but with boundaries. That's important. Of course. I support you in your life. Even my father had become more active in supporting her. Around the same time, I got another message from Hannah. I've been thinking a lot during these sessions. I really want to change. I depended on you too much, and I'm sorry. From now on, I'll work hard to stand on my own. I'm really glad I finally understand your feelings. I replied simply, thank you. I'm rooting for you. Our family had once fallen apart. But little by little, we were building something new. One sunny Sunday afternoon, I was out walking with Wesley. You know, Wesley, my family is slowly changing. And for the first time, I'm starting to look forward to going home. Wesley smiled back. That's a beautiful thing. It's all because you had the courage to face them. I gently squeezed his hand. Thank you. I wouldn't have come this far without you on my side. I'll always be on your side, he said. I smiled from my heart. I was no longer someone who lived only to sacrifice for others. Now I was learning to build a new kind of relationship with my family, one that allowed me to protect my own life too. For the first time, I was walking forward as the main character in my own life. Things wouldn't go back to the way they were. But that was okay. I can face my family little by little while still protecting my own life. Not by carrying everything like I used to, but by maintaining a balanced, equal distance. I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I felt a small, genuine hope for the future. Let's go enjoy this new life, I whispered in my heart as I looked into Wesley's eyes.
My phone buzzed at 3:35 in the morning. It was a bank alert. As soon as I saw it, I felt like all the air had left my body. My account showed minus $45,516.21. That much money just gone. I sat straight up in bed, staring at the number on the screen, hoping maybe it would change if I blinked enough times. But it didn't. My name is Jacqueline Wilson. If you're watching this, please keep listening. I want to tell you something that changed my life forever. It started with that one number. That number told me the truth about my family, something I wish I had known earlier. This all happened during the week of my 32nd birthday. I didn't waste time. I picked up my phone and called my dad. He answered on speaker. I could hear music in the background and my mom laughing like everything was fine. Hey Dad, something's wrong with my account, I said. My card is maxed out. Did something happen? There was a short pause. Then his voice came through, annoyed. You're always so dramatic. The family needed help. Your mom had surgery, your brother's truck broke down, and the mortgage was behind. I just sat there, shocked. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why didn't you ask me? I finally asked. He didn't even hesitate. We don't need to ask. You owe us. Then my mom chimed in with a cold laugh. Besides, she said, what were you going to do with that money? Buy yourself some cake and candles? We had better plans. There was silence after that. A deep, painful silence. And that silence was the last birthday gift they gave me. I took a breath and said calmly, then don't ever call me again. And I meant it. I hung up the phone and went straight to work. I logged into every account I had. I checked every automatic payment. I went through every agreement I had signed. They thought that because I was the responsible one, the one who made it, that they could take from me forever. But that night, I decided something. I became the one who cuts the ties. The mortgage? Cancelled. It was in my name. My mom's credit couldn't get approved, so I had done it. The truck? Repossessed the next day by noon. My bank marked it as unauthorized use. I didn't argue. Her student loans? Frozen. I had co-signed, but now I pulled back because of financial stress. I removed myself from everything quietly. No fights, no warnings, no big scenes. Just quiet steps away. I turned all that pain into action. Into clean, clear steps. And their birthday present to themselves, stealing from me, became the moment they lost me for good. The next morning, my phone lit up like a fire. There were so many missed calls and messages. One after another, texts kept coming in. Some were angry. Some were confused. And then, just like that, they turned sweet. One message said, "Jacqueline, the truck is gone. What's going on?" Another said, "Honey, did something happen with the mortgage? The bank says it's in default." Then, "Just call us. We're family." Family. That word only seems to matter to them when something goes wrong, when things start falling apart. Where was that word when they emptied my bank account? Where was it when they used me without asking? I didn't respond to any of them. I was too busy. I spent that day freezing my credit. I changed every password. I called every company, every agency, and removed myself from anything that connected me to them. I was cutting the cords they had been using for years. They forgot something important. I wasn't just a nice person. I was the one in control. My name was on the truck. My name was on the house. I was the cosigner, the backup, the emergency contact. They used me like a debit card that never ran out. And they thought because I loved them, they could keep doing it forever. But this wasn't about the $45,000. It was about how easily they did it. No guilt. No second thoughts. They didn't even ask. They ruined my birthday, the day I turned 32, with cold hands and selfish choices. These were the same people who taught me what love was supposed to look like. But now, it felt fake, like they sold me a dream and signed my name at the bottom without asking. I went back and read some old messages. From last Christmas. "We're proud of you, kid. You're a success story. We don't say it enough, but you're our miracle." I used to cry when I read those. Now I just felt empty. If I was really a miracle, then why did they treat me like an ATM with a heartbeat? So I did to them what they had done to me, quietly. I disconnected everything. I ended every tie. While they called and texted and begged, I finally took a deep breath. For the first time, I wasn't the one trying to fix everything. I wasn't the helper. I was the wall they could no longer get through. And I wasn't done yet. By Saturday, they were so desperate they came to my house. I watched through the peephole. My dad was on the porch, red-faced, walking in circles like he owned the place. My mom was crying loudly in her leopard print sweater, louder than the doorbell. But I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. I let them yell through the door. They screamed and shouted, but to me, it was just noise. Yelling doesn't mean anything when it doesn't come with respect. They stayed outside for about 12 minutes, banging on the door, begging me to listen, and even throwing out threats. "Jacqueline, you're ruining everything. We trusted you. How could you do this to your own family?" I just sat calmly on the couch, sipping coffee from a mug they had given me 2 birthdays ago. It had the words #OneDaughter on it. Kind of funny now, isn't it? I didn't answer the door. I waited until the noise stopped. Then I opened my laptop and sent one final email to my lawyer. It was all there, full disconnection from them. I removed power of attorney, ended all financial links, and cut every shared responsibility. That meant no more family phone plan. No more Amazon Prime I had paid for over 7 years. No more Hulu or Netflix in my name. No more utility bills under my credit, especially since Mom's credit couldn't qualify. I shut it all down. Later that same afternoon, I saw my mom post something on FB. It was one of those vague, emotional messages. It said, "It's always the ones you love most who hurt you the deepest." She didn't tag me, but I knew it was about me. Her friends flooded the comments. "You raised her too soft. She owes you everything." Kids today are so entitled. Entitled? I gave them everything, not because I had to, but because I believed in family. I believed love meant helping, supporting, and being there. But they turned that idea of family into a weapon. They used it to take from me again and again. That night, I changed my phone number. Before I shut it off, I left one final voicemail. I said, "You chose being comfortable over being honest. You broke the trust one spent years building. Now, you can rebuild without me." Then I blocked every number. No dramatic goodbye. No revenge plan. Just quiet. The same quiet they gave me every time they took something without asking. But now, the silence finally belonged to me. The next day, I got a text from my cousin Joyce. "Did you really shut off the gas at your parents' house? It's freezing, Jacqueline. They have no heat." I stared at the message for a full minute before replying. I didn't shut it off. I just stopped paying for it. There was no response. Just those 4 little dots like she was typing. Then nothing. That silence hit harder than any insult. Later that day, I got an email from my mom. It was from a random address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Please read this." The email said, "We didn't raise you to be like this." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Because here's what she never understood. They did raise me to be like this. They raised me by teaching me that love had to be earned. That being part of the family meant doing things for them, fixing problems, and cleaning up their messes. They taught me that my worth depended on how much I could give, how much I could carry, and how quiet I could stay about it. So yes, when I cut off the gas, took back the truck, stopped paying the mortgage, and pulled my name off the loans, I wasn't being cruel. I was just returning everything they gave me. All the years of pressure, silence, and guilt, wrapped up as parenting. My dad once said, "Family doesn't keep score." He said that right after I paid for his second DUI fine. So, I stopped keeping score. And instead, I closed the whole account. That same month, I started going to therapy. My therapist asked me, "When did you first feel like you were responsible for your parents?" Without thinking, I answered, "When I was 14. Mom cried because she couldn't pay the electric bill. So I got a job sweeping hair after school." That was the moment I realized I wasn't being raised. I was doing the raising. I was the one holding things together. And all I've done now is grow up and walk away from the people who stayed stuck in place. I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. Because the truth is, choosing yourself can feel like an attack to the people who only saw you as someone to use. And I'm not available anymore. Not for fixing. Not for saving. Not for sacrifice. They renamed the family group chat without me. Threads I created were now being used to talk behind my back. Joyce, my cousin, sent me screenshots. She didn't even add a message this time, just forwarded what they were saying. "Jacqueline's heartless. We gave her everything, food, clothes, a roof. She got successful and forgot where she came from." Let me remind you where I came from. I came from eviction notices taped to the windows. I came from watching my mom fake seizures to get bill extensions. I came from my dad borrowing money and calling it a gift. They say I should be grateful, but I turned survival into something better. I took what little I had and created stability, not just for me, but for all of us. But they didn't want stability. They wanted control. They wanted me to stay small, stay thankful, stay dependent. Because my growth forced them to face their own choices. And now, I'm done playing that role. When I finally stood up for myself, they called me cold, heartless, ungrateful. They forgot all the times I paid for dinner, the Christmas gifts I bought that made the holidays feel special, the birthday parties I planned and paid for, even though they never remembered mine. They only remembered what I gave, not how often they took. Joyce messaged me again. "I know it's messy," she said, "but they're still your parents." I started typing, then paused, deleted my first reply. Then I wrote, "If you break someone again and again, you don't get to act surprised when they stop coming home." Then I blocked the thread and muted the guilt. That night, I posted one short message to my small group of friends online. Boundaries don't make you mean. They just make the silence easier to live in. Within hours, messages poured in. People I knew. People I didn't. I needed this. "I've been Jacqueline too. Thank you for saying what I couldn't." I didn't need the family's version of me anymore. The version where I was the selfish daughter. The ungrateful sister. That version was never real. I had rewritten myself. And this new version of me wasn't here to perform or earn forgiveness. She was here to live.
It was Thursday.
Rain tapped on the windows like a soft knock. I lit a candle, made some tea, and for the first time in a long time, I just sat still. I felt peace. Then my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail. From my mom. Jacqueline, it's your mom. Your dad fell and broke his leg. We're at county. No insurance. They won't do the surgery unless we pay part of it. We know you're upset, but this is serious. This is family. Please just call back. For 4 minutes, I didn't move. I stared at the phone like it was a ticking bomb. I knew that voice, that tone, the one she used when she needed something, the one that pulled me back in, not with love, but with pressure. There was never an apology, just an emergency. I opened my laptop, pulled up a spreadsheet. The truth? I could afford it. I had the money. But then I opened another folder, one I had named History. Inside were emails, screenshots, and account statements. Proof of everything. The time they emptied my bank account without asking. The birthday they forgot, but still charged dinner to my card. The $45,000 they stole and called it helping the family. I stared at it all. And just like that, their new emergency didn't feel like mine. It felt like another trap. A new guilt wrapped in the same old pain. So I didn't call back. Instead, I let the rain keep tapping. And I stayed still. I didn't write a check to the hospital. I wrote one to myself. A deposit into what I now call my peace fund. A promise that I will protect my peace, even when guilt tries to sneak back in.
And it did try.
Guilt always finds a way in, whispering, "You should help. You're the good one." But this time, I didn't listen. I slammed that door shut. I texted Joyce. Tell them I hope he heals. But I'm not going to hurt myself again just to fix their pain.
She didn't respond.
And for the first time, that silence didn't hurt. It didn't sting. It felt like fresh air. It felt like freedom. That night, I slept with the window open a little, just enough to let the cool air in. I didn't keep my phone next to the bed. No buzzing. No late-night panic. For once, I wasn't bracing for something bad. I wasn't waiting for a call, or a crisis, or someone to need me again. I was just resting. Because letting go of people who never respected your worth, that isn't being mean. That's choosing to live. And I was finally living, really living by my rules. A few weeks later, I walked into my cousin Christine's wedding. I went with my head high and my heart strong. I didn't go to please anyone. I went because Christine mattered to me. She was the one who always saw me, not as the family fixer, but just as Jacqueline, even before I had the career or the strength to say no. I knew my parents would be there. I expected it. Mom wore a tight dress she probably couldn't afford. Dad had a cane and wore a rented tux. The limp looked more like a performance than pain. As soon as I walked into the hall, I felt their eyes on me. Not warm, not loving, just watching, measuring me. I wore black satin. Not to mourn, but to show that I was no longer the little girl they could control. I wasn't there to make peace. I was there as my own person. They didn't say a word, but their looks said everything.
Talk to us.
Fix this. Do what you always do. But I didn't move. I didn't shrink. I sat at a table with Christine's friends. I laughed loudly. I danced with joy. I let my happiness be a kind of quiet rebellion, like saying, "You don't get to decide how I feel anymore." During dinner, Mom walked past my table. She stopped, placed a shaky hand on the back of my chair, and said softly, "You look different." I met her eyes and replied, "I am." She started to say something, but I gently raised my hand and said, "I'm here for Christine, not for you."
And that was enough.
Her eyes looked glossy, but it wasn't because she was sad. It wasn't grief. It was because, for the first time, she saw what she had lost. She saw me, not the version of me they could use, not the one who gave in and kept helping. I wasn't their rescue boat anymore. I had become a lighthouse, shining from far away.
Bright. Still.
Safe. But untouchable. During the wedding toast, my dad raised his glass and looked my way, like he expected me to do something, smile, nod, offer peace. But I didn't move.
I didn't lift my glass. I didn't pretend.
Peace doesn't come from acting like nothing happened. Peace comes from walking through pain and deciding not to carry someone else's burden anymore. I was done carrying theirs. That night, I danced until my feet hurt. I sang until my voice cracked. And when it was all over, I left without saying goodbye. When I got home, I did one last thing. I turned off the final autopay from my past, my childhood. It's been a year now. A year since they took $45,000 from me. A year since that voicemail that broke more than my trust. A year since I stopped picking up their calls and started answering my own needs. The guilt? It doesn't hit the same way anymore. It used to feel like an alarm in my chest, loud and painful. Now, it's just a quiet noise I can shut off with truth. And the truth is, I gave them more than money. I gave them access to my heart, and they treated it like a bank account. A card they could swipe without thinking. With no limit. But that card is closed now. I've built something new. My own apartment. My own business. And a group of friends who don't use the word family as a weapon. Friends who don't drain me to feel full. Who don't need something from me to stay close. This year, on my birthday, my phone didn't ring. No card. No fake text from them. Nothing. But I did get a knock at my door. It was Christine, standing there with a cake and candles. She looked at me and whispered, "You were never the problem. You were just the first to escape." We lit the candles together. We didn't make wishes.
We just breathed.
Because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes, healing is choosing not to open the door, even when loneliness comes knocking, wearing a face that looks like love. I stopped chasing blood ties. I started choosing soul ties. The kind of people who don't ask for your energy just to feel okay. The kind who call you not because they need help, but because they care. Mom still posts vague updates online. Dad still plays the victim in family talks. But their voices don't echo in my life anymore. I've built walls made of self-respect.
And now, I don't care what they say.
Because I don't belong to them anymore. I belong to me, fully, finally, and freely.